Within the society of One Piece lies corruption, dictatorship, and slavery, but outside of the society lies the exact same thing. Pirates are described as the root of evil by the world government, and it is their job to lock away this evil from the world. While this applies to the majority of pirates, a few of them shine as bright as the sun as a symbol of hope and good. Even though the government pledges to protect the world, they are not shy to get their hands dirty for their malicious cause that we have yet to learn. The five elders are willing to take out anyone who sees their face and anyone that threatens their plans. People like Smoker, Kobe, and Garp know about the corruptions of the government, and even though they doubt the legitimacy of the government, they stay because they believe they can make some difference, even if they are destined to fail, for the good of the world. Pirates like Luffy or Whitebeard stem away from their greed to help people even if there's no benefit, because they have good hearts that they try to hide at times. Of course, the rebellion against the government would also apply in the pirate category in the government's eyes, but it's a bit different since they don't act like pirates but more like liberators, and the government obviously sees them as the biggest threat right now, besides Luffy or the Yonkos. They represent an unstoppable force. When I talk about the good of One Piece, I don't mean the good that lies within the darkness of both sides. I mean the good that lies as the series in One Piece. Let me be more specific. What makes One Piece so good, and why is One Piece so good? Series like Dragon Ball have had a longer runtime than One Piece, but the main issue with long-running series is that consistency will always be lost at some point. Dragon Ball Z is a series filled with memories for a lot of people, but after the Cell Saga, the series writing quality just went downhill. Super is not bad, but it's not good. I only watch Super and keep up with current Dragon Ball for the fight scenes, but with One Piece, the consistency has always been there. This video should be named The Amazing of One Piece, but that sounds weird, so I decided to go with good. Consistency is always something I struggle with when it comes to quality, because do I want a series to have lows so low that it makes me want to skip an arc?
Oh my god, bro. Oh, hell no, man. What the? Oh.
Hello, Bozo.
But high so high that it could be considered a masterpiece in media? Or do I want a consistent series that I know won't have as many lows, but the highs can struggle to reach certain highs of other series? An example could be Dark Souls 3 versus Bloodborne. TS3 has the best highs in the Soul series, but one of the lowest lows. On the contrary, Bloodborne being consistent from beginning to end, but in my opinion, the highs not necessarily being as good as other series in the Souls franchise, which some people might call crazy, but that's a discussion for another day. Of course, it doesn't apply to certain series at times, since some series can have the best of both worlds. Even certain highs of One Piece can struggle to reach highs of other series. One Piece is so good because of the consistency with the combination of its highs and very small lows. I will talk about the bad of One Piece another day, but right now I just want to cover the good of One Piece, since how can I criticize a series with some problems in its writing without talking about the amazing world building certain series should strive for or struggle to achieve? One Piece world building is basically a talking point for a series' 20-year run on just how spectacular it is, and if you're dedicated to catch up, you can understand why. Back to the Souls point, I think both of these series have very similar structures. We meet a character off the bat we have no idea about. As we go on the journey with them, we learn about the world bit by bit, either through scenes or various items the protagonist discovers. We start connecting the dots from hints early on in the series to recent hints we get now, and we get closer and closer to answers we want. Obviously, if you're a fan of these two series, there's drastic differences, but they both follow a simple formula in terms of world building and take different routes. Now, I'm going to stop the comparisons because this is a video for One Piece, but I need to compare the series to something I am a big fan of. But this is the last time I'll bring up the Soul series, as I've been recently playing just too much Elden Ring, and I just desperately needed to rant about FromSoft related, blah blah. Oda has mastered how to tease new lore / future setups by showing us and not telling us. Even when he does tell us, it's usually mentioned by an important character to make the dialogue more engaging, so it comes from a reliable source that only a side character would know. When a series takes its time to show us the history or setups it's trying to convey, the payoff works out most of the time because it helps elevate how the world interacts with its characters. Consequences have actions to them, and for the most part in One Piece, there's a logical explanation why the Straw Hats have made it as far as they did, unlike other pirate groups. One Piece has a curious not only on Luffy's journey as a pirate, but its world is trying to convey to us with character interactions they offer. Following the story can be long and tedious, yet you find yourself memorized on how everything holds together so well even with its 20-year run. I want to offer my thoughts on what made the series a monument of forefront in writing, and why I love this series so much narratively. In terms of shonen quality, One Piece is a masterpiece in writing, breaking stereotypes early on in its career that other shonen series struggle to understand. I'm going to pick one moment or multiple moments from each arc I consider the best moments that have affected my viewing experience and made me a fan of the series. So some arcs will either get one or multiple goods, but mostly just one for each arc. Spoilers, obviously. Alright, before we actually start this video, I need to give a quick update about, some mistakes I did. Mostly specific translations. So if you're like new to manga or anime or anything like that, you might notice that a lot of the translations that I get from the manga aren't, correlating to the scenes or like the panels I'm showing. That's only because translation to Japanese, from Japanese to English could be weird at times. So don't overthink it too much, because at the end of the day, it really does mean the same thing, except like certain circumstances. You might notice that with the MarineFord section and as well as the Skypiea section, but at the end of the day, it doesn't really change the points I made during those sections, but you just have to wait till you get there. I just need to give you a quick heads up, because I don't want anyone saying like, oh, you got the translations wrong, or oh, you're not a real One Piece fans if you got the translation wrong. Like, who cares? It means the same thing for the most part, right? Yeah, let's start. World building is only possible through arcs, side characters, events, and main characters, but let's pay attention to the first three right now. The arcs of One Piece are what make the series so consistent. The snowball took a while to roll for a lot of people who are fans of the series, including me. Once the snowball picked up momentum, an avalanche came. That certain point can vary from person to person, but there's two main arcs that helped a lot of watchers be certified One Piece dick riders: Alabasta and Arlong Park. What I want to do now is go through each arc of One Piece in order of chronological order and talk about their high points, since it will be unfair ignoring all the other arcs brought us, starting with Romance Dawn. Romance Dawn is a solid start to the series, as we already meet a variety of people already, with Shanks and his crew, Higuma the brown hockey user, and Kobe, who ends up almost as Luffy's rival. Obviously, we meet the three most important members: Zoro Roronoa, Nami, and of course our protagonist, Monkey D. Luffy. Depending how you start, either anime or manga, after Luffy's backstory, we understand the tone and what type of journey his character will follow, as the first thing he does is wake up yelling, scaring Kobe. The good of this arc comes from knowing who Luffy is immediately. He isn't bound by standard pirate rules some people follow. He does whatever he wants because he wants to. And that's why he's so loved by the fans of the series, since we feel that effect that Luffy has on people early on. More on that later. We also get hints of Nami as she steals treasure from a ship. There's more focus on her in the next arc, so we'll skip her for now and go straight into Roronoa Zoro. Pause. Luffy and Kobe meet Zoro at a navy base being tied to a cross in the heat. Off the bat, a demonic aura is oozing out of Zoro. Both Luffy and Kobe notice this seeing him for the first time, as Kobe warned earlier in the arc not to recruit him, but Luffy doesn't care since he really wants Zoro to join. We get a lot of context on how Zoro ended up here. The real highlight is his backstory, since he desires to be the strongest swordsman, saying he promised his childhood friend to refine his skill and avenge her after down these stairs incident. Zoro is obviously not interested in Luffy's offer, and he's presented more serious tone, yet he isn't all dark-hearted. A girl comes in a navy base with onigiri in her hand to feed Zoro, seeing him tied up for multiple days. The onigiri is tossed to the ground by Helmeppo as he finds them gross. The girl added sugar to the food instead of salt. She is escorted away and Helmeppo leaves, but Zoro asks Luffy to feed him the onigiri that was destroyed by Helmeppo. The food is more like dirt mixed with rice. Regardless, Zoro eats all of it with no hesitation, saying he needs to last as long as he can, noting that Helmeppo promised Zoro that he would be untied after a month. Fast forward a bit, Luffy decides to free Zoro, hearing that Helmeppo lied about his decision, and after telling Zoro this lie, Zoro tells Luffy to get his 3 swords. Luffy tells Zoro if he decides to fight the navy that he will be a fugitive and be as bad as a pirate, but Zoro, being left with no other option but to be a pirate to achieve being the greatest swordsman, decides to join Luffy to fight the navy. Oda nails first impression in his first arc, showing who Zoro is and hiding true intentions behind personality. It becomes a pattern for the main members of the Straw Hats in every arc, as we understand what role they can play for the crew. Zoro dedicates being Luffy's right-hand man. He promises Luffy to join his crew for saving him, sticking true to his word, but warns him he won't hesitate to cut him if he gets in his way. Luffy has a way with people, and I'm not talking about Zoro. I left Kobe out because he needed a section for himself here, since he is basically the opposite of Luffy. Kobe's desire is to be a Navy soldier to protect people from evil. His self-consciousness and lack of will gets in his way until he meets Luffy when he was stuck in Alvida's crew. Even though Luffy can be very idiotic, Kobe slowly acknowledges Luffy even if he believes pirates to be the root of all evil. Luffy gave him that push he needed in life as well as Luffy's good-hearted nature. The best part comes in the arc where Kobe is given two choices: stay with Luffy or fulfill his dream to be a Navy soldier. He is questioned if he is part of Luffy's crew. Kobe hesitates to throw Luffy under the bus. He knows Luffy is a pirate, but Luffy isn't like other pirates. He helped him escape Alvida, helped Zoro from unjust execution, and took down a corrupt officer that was terrorizing innocent people. So ratting the person who hasn't done anything would be against Kobe's philosophy, even if Luffy chose the life of a pirate. Luffy decides to irritate him, which makes Kobe punch him. Kobe realizes what he's done, and this is such an amazing representation for Luffy's character. The only reason why Luffy does this is because he sees Kobe as a friend and wants to help him become a marine soldier. Even if they end up on opposite sides later down the line, he's happy to help Kobe mark down his own path he desires instead of being pushed around anymore. The good of Romance Dawn is the effect Luffy has on people like Kobe and Zoro. Both lost metaphorically and literally, but Luffy gives them that push for their desired path in his own way. Luffy necessarily doesn't care for the average person. He doesn't mind helping people when they really need it. The theme you can basically get from this is that a little push, even if you don't necessarily like it, can be what you need to start your own path. Sort of like riding a bike. You hesitate to learn without training wheels, but when you get that push that helps you balance on your own, you start to get the hang of the path you want to go, whether it's forward or somewhere else. It's all about a little push in the end. And that's what makes Romance Dawn a good start for our protagonist. It doesn't do anything groundbreaking in terms of storytelling, yet it gets the ball rolling for Luffy's journey as a pirate, pushing away the evil narrative some groups have obtained. He starts off very rough with nothing in his name, only the clothes on his back, but he pushes on helping people even if he is a pirate. That effect he has is a start on his character going forward, being the most important aspect of what makes Luffy, Luffy. Luffy follows the trend of loud protagonists in his own way by helping people who need it with brute force. It's simple and short. Orange Town is such a fitting name for Nami considering her relations with tangerines. This arc introduces a long-running villain throughout the series, Buggy the Clown. Why did I say Buggy D? It's Buggy the Clown. Yeah, Buggy the Clown. Buggy is the real star of this arc. Even if he is portrayed as a comic relief, he is feared by his own men and the villagers of the town he overtook. With the silly nature his men and himself are portrayed, this is our actual look into a serious pirate group, ironically. The pirate group run by a clown is our first look into a serious pirate group. You might be saying, what about Alvida? Yeah, you can include her, but Buggy is far more interesting because the first major thing we see for this arc is Buggy is a buggy bomb. This is out of the blue and destructive. It shows that Buggy shouldn't be taken lightly. It doesn't mean he's not dumb or portrays any clown characteristics. Nami tries to get close to Buggy since she plans to steal the important treasure for her benefit and offers to join Buggy. Without hesitation, Buggy agrees, but like I said, he isn't stupid. They celebrate Nami joining them, and Buggy tells her to prove her loyalty. She needs to shoot Luffy with a buggy bomb. As we think Nami is about to do it without hesitation, we see a different side to her. It's shown that Nami isn't as bad as we think she is. The few things we're shown of her is that she watches out for herself and doesn't mind doing things that will benefit her. She tricked Luffy earlier to get the map from Buggy by throwing him under the bus. All of this aside, Nami decides to save Luffy by stopping the charge of the cannon and giving Luffy and Zoro a chance to fight back. Now Nami could have just shot Luffy with a bomb, but that wasn't the case. Before Arlong Park, we get hints of Nami's true character. Yeah, she's greedy, yes, she tricks people. Ignoring those facts though, we get hints of who she truly is under that facade she wears. Because of the arcs leading towards Arlong Park, it's basically bit by bit of information. Not enough to get her backstory, but enough to see that she's hiding something, and Orange Town is basically a hinting point for Nami's true character. Back to Buggy, the main focus of this arc is Buggy's fight with Luffy. This is the first time we see Devil Fruit users duke it out with each other. I think the one thing that sticks out for me is that Buggy's initial thought of eating a Devil Fruit could have been completely avoided. Like I said before, Buggy is a clown, but he isn't stupid, but now I'm saying that he is stupid, not Luffy stupid, you know? Okay, so essentially he finds a devil fruit and proceeds to eat a fake one to trick the crew he used to belong to originally. Wouldn't it have been smarter if he just said, I'll eat it later, because the only reason why this happens is due to his idiocy. He is so focused on hiding the devil fruit and the treasure map that he accidentally eats it trying to hide his plans to Shanks. I'm not saying this wouldn't have happened if he just revealed he didn't eat the fruit, but I just find it stupid he shouldn't have been so secretive on actually eating it. I understand it's probably taboo to steal treasure from your crew. All he needed to do was just say he wasn't gonna eat it, considering that the rule of devil fruits with crews is whoever finds it, keeps it. This really isn't a nitpick, but honestly this backstory on Buggy's fruit is funny as fuck. I think the reason why this happened was supposed to resemble how Luffy also accidentally ate his fruit, along with Shanks kind of being the reason why they did. It's also fitting that this is Luffy's first main opponent in the series, being a man close to Shanks himself. The good of this arc is how connected the two become in terms of lore and future events, due to Shanks' involvement from their past with both of them. In their fight, they both show their mastery of devil fruits due to having them early on in life. The devil fruits in high stats are average at best, and at worst, they're the worst in the series. And early on in the series, it's basically shown that it's all up to the wielder of the fruit to master the powers using their own imagination. Hint hint. Buggy and Luffy are a very good example of making do with unwanted circumstances in life because of their dumb decisions. During the fight, Buggy in multiple instances splits his body and uses them to attack Luffy and Nami in different angles. Naturally, this should give Buggy an edge in a fight since Luffy attacks are like Dark Souls, I mean he has to dedicate an attack when stretching in a distance fight. Buggy keeps himself out of range, but Luffy knows this early on in the fight and multiple times avoids Buggy's attacks before he dedicates an attack. That's why in a fight, Luffy has an upper hand in understanding the weaknesses Devil Fruit possesses. Buggy is very full of himself and he thinks very low of Luffy as well as other people. In his old pirate days in his youth, he tries to trick people and steal from them. He isn't shy about killing his own crewmates as well as betraying them to get what he wants. He is the opposite of Luffy being an example of what greediness does to a pirate if he focuses on himself. Buggy is a representation of the East Blue pirates in the saga as well as evil pirates in the whole series, and is the reason why he loses to Luffy in this arc due to his selflessness, which is crazy to say considering later on he's actually very caring towards his crew members in his own weird way. But regardless, the two are the opposite in what they see in their crews. In the arc, Luffy helps Chocho out by defeating Moji because he learns Chocho was defending his old owner's shop from the boogie pirate with his miniature stature. Moji tries to feed his lion by stealing from the store, but Chocho tries to fight back with no avail. Moji gets frustrated by Chocho biting him and that he ends up burning out the store. Luffy gets mad about what happened and decides to beat up Moji since hearing about Chocho's story earned him his respect. Even though Nami says he doesn't like Luffy nor cares to join him, Luffy doesn't mind having her around knowing that she isn't a bad person, if she decided to help him obviously. It's the earliest we get of clashing ideologies with, like I said earlier, Buggy not hesitating killing his own men for making fun of his nose. It was shown in the Romance Dawn arc with Axe-Hand Morgan being a corrupt officer, yet I think this is a better example due to Buggy and Luffy's similarish history with Shanks, if you know what I mean. Even with all that, this arc gives us a lot of future setups for the East Blue Saga going forward, which I love, and it's a shame not a lot of people notice this when going through the series. Orange Town is a starter in terms of setups, for not just Nami, but for Buggy and Luffy even if small. Buggy and Luffy's relationship is very one-sided with Buggy just overall hating the success Luffy gained. That could be the reason why Buggy has made it as far as he did, by just hating on Luffy his whole journey.
Borrow $50.
$30? What do you need $20 for? Oh, I can't believe my own son is deleting my last $10. Help! Police! A madman is trying to kill me over $5. You'll be hearing from my lawyer about that $50 you still owe me.
I am not the biggest fan of Syrup Village, and I am not afraid to admit this since there isn't a lot this arc offers, but I am gonna glaze Kuro, alright? He was the real show of this arc, and the only reason why I don't completely hate this arc, since Kuro was on some demon time. Bro decided that his crew didn't live up to his expectations and was ready to kill them on sight. He has simple motivations. He wanted to retire early, but his plans were a key to that goal. Faking his death by using one of his crew's hypnosis on a Navy general, tricking Kaya's family to become a butler, getting close with everyone in the village along with Kaya's family, with Kaya's parents dying randomly, favoring his plans. And he was about to succeed, but only lost because of Usopp and Luffy discovering his true intention when his plan was ready to start. Everything was calculated towards his favor, but outside factors interrupted his plans. Even with that, Kuro adapted to the situation and was ready to go to plan B immediately. He knew killing Kaya directly wouldn't really change his original plans by saying Kaya died in an accident. I'm not the biggest fan of Usopp in this arc considering this is his introduction arc, but I do enjoy the resolution he gets to be able to sail the seas to be a pirate after multiple years of acting like a joke. It's the closest we get to an ordinary person in the crew gaining confidence to follow their ambition and stepping out of their comfort zone. It follows the theme I described in Romance Dawn section really well. Now he can become a brave warrior in the sea with the crew's help. But the good of this arc is the Going Merry Kai gives to the crew, because Luffy has just been using pass-me-downs basically. The Going Merry becomes a good starter pirate ship for the crew as they finally start solidifying their beginning path towards the proper pirate crew. I love the design of the ship since it mixes a traditional pirate ship core with Oda adding his own wacky ideas. He literally sticks a giant sheep in front of the ship, yet it still looks amazing. Oda doesn't shy away from these stupid ass designs that shouldn't work, yet they do. The Going Merry is spectacular, and even though Kuro is the highlight of this arc, he can't beat the core member of the Straw Hats. I want to keep this section short because Strip Village is the weaker arc in the East Blue Saga, so I think we can move on to the next arc since it introduces my GOAT! Oda was cooking with the Baratie arc. Get it? Get it? Okay, I'll move on. Baratie gives us so many key moments for this saga, and if you've seen One Piece, you know what I'm talking about. This arc, along with Arlong, is why the East Blue Saga is such an amazing starter for the crew and Oda's writing. Let's start with the next member, and my GOAT, Sanji. The crew are looking for a chef, and Zoro's old childhood friend suggests they look at Baratie. They head there, and Sanji makes a good impression towards the crew by his passive-aggressive personality. We see Sanji embarrass a Navy general named Fullbody in front of his date for guessing the wine wrong. Fullbody insults the food by putting a fly in the soup. He decides to throw the soup towards the ground, and this angers Sanji, so he proceeds to beat him up. Fast forward a bit, the reason why Sanji lost his temper is due to his past trauma stuck in the sea with his adoptive father, Zeph. Before Sanji worked with Zeph, a younger Sanji used to work at an old ship in the kitchen with other chefs. The chefs are eating leftover food from other people's plates, saying to Sanji they don't know when they're gonna eat again. The ocean is unpredictable and it's better to be safe than sorry. Sanji scolds him regardless since it is unhygienic to eat other people's food. The ship is attacked by Zeph himself and his alias Red Leg Zeph. Zeph's crew loots all the important loot except the food for a reason, and one of the crew members decides to take some with him. Zeph punishes him for stealing food since it's taboo in his crew to steal food. We don't know why yet. Food is so accessible nowadays in our time. For the people who don't live in a Grand Line, the people kind of live like they're in the 18th century because of how dangerous the seas are to an unprepared group. Like how Yosuke was dying to scurvy earlier in the arc. So it makes sense why Zeph has a rule on his crew about stealing food, because one pirate group would at least have this rule, showing some pirate groups aren't monsters like others. Young Sanji sees what's going on and tries to fight Zeph. The storm consumes Sanji into the ocean before he can do anything, and Zeph chases towards Sanji with a couple of bags. The two end up in the middle of the ocean on top of the small piece of land. Zeph gives a bag of food to Sanji, saying to stand on the other side of the island so they can watch out for help and not to ask for his portion of his food. Sanji takes no issue with this. Then we see Zeph decide to cut off his own leg for some reason, as our young chef is hopeful that someone will find them. But his hope dwindles slowly over time as the food he decided to stretch out for days end up moldy and inedible. Sanji starts to go crazy due to hunger. Many days have passed and he is ready to accept his fate of the sea consuming him. He notices that Zeph's bag is still full. Sanji threatens Zeph with a knife to give him his food. Zeph just sits there, unresponsive, so Sanji opens the bag and sees nothing but loot. He starts questioning Zeph and sees his leg missing. The realization hits Sanji like a train. Zeph ate his own leg and gave Sanji the only bag of food available. Sanji breaks down yelling at Zeph why he would sacrifice his own leg for him. This event forever changed who Sanji would be as a person due to what Zeph sacrificed for him. The one thing that built Zeph's reputation in the pirate era is now gone because of Sanji. After some time, the two are saved by Zeph's crew.
食い物があんなに。
船は見えたのか。
うるせえ。お前だけこんなにたくさん。おい、どうなってんだよ。全部宝だぞ。お前。 今日までどうやって生きてきたんだよ。食料は？どうしたんだよ。その足。お前、俺を助けるために自分の足。
そうだ。
食料は俺にくれたのが全部だったのか。
そうだ。
そんな余計なことすんなよ。 お前に優しくされる覚えはねえぞ。なんでだよ。なんでだよ。
お前が俺と同じ夢を持ってたからだ。
オールブルーけどそんなもんないって。
あるさ。グランドラインを目指せ。オールブルーはきっとそこにある。
This backstory is a work of art and one of the best moments in the arc and saga. It teaches Sanji as well as the viewer/reader about the dangers of the sea in One Piece, and is a reason why Sanji refuses to let anyone who comes to the Baratie to starve, with Jin being the best example, who was locked up by Full Body even if he started trouble. Zeph is the reason why Sanji rejects Luffy's offer after seeing him feed Jin. Sanji isn't as arrogant as he seemed to be, and Luffy tries to convince Sanji regardless to join his crew. But Sanji has given up on his main dream, finding the All Blue. The All Blue is described as a sea where all the fish in every main sea join together, and when Sanji was younger, he gave up on his dream to help Zeph as a repayment for saving his life. The good of this arc is the effects the next two events have on Sanji: Zoro vs Mihawk and Krieg's invasion on the Baratie. The only reason why Baratie is invaded is because of Jin. Jin belongs to the Krieg's crew and wanted Sanji to help him feed him. Krieg's whole crew was obliterated in the Grand Line by just one man, Dracule Mihawk. Krieg demands food and water for his crew, and as Sanji plans to give them the food, the rest of the Baratie chefs stop him, calling him crazy for even thinking about helping a man who is just going to cause trouble. Zeph demands they just let him give him the food, regardless of intention. Krieg takes the food to his crew to recover what's even left. Just as Krieg plans to start his invasion, Mihawk approaches the Baratie to finish what he started, stating he's just looking to kill time. Zoro sees Mihawk approach, stating he's been looking for him all this time. Mihawk is revealed to be the world's strongest swordsman, and Zoro has been wanting to challenge his position. Mihawk accepts, but uses a tiny dagger from his cross, saying, "I'm not the type of fool who hunts rabbits with a cannon." Zoro is frustrated by this answer and lunges towards him with his three swords, but everyone stares in shock as Mihawk stops Zoro's onigiri attack with just one move. Zoro rushes again with multiple attacks to no avail. Mihawk stabs him in the heart, stopping him instantly. Zoro just stands there with a blade piercing his heart, not moving an inch. Mihawk questions why Zoro doesn't take a step back, and Zoro states that a feeling is telling him not to, as if he were to take one step back, then he will break a promise, referring to Kuina. Mihawk is intrigued by this and decides to give Zoro one chance with his actual sword, stating to him he will use his black sword to end the duel as a sign of respect. As Mihawk rushes him, Zoro uses 3,000 worlds as a last desperate attempt to Mihawk's final attack. Mihawk breaks two of his swords and he's about to slash Zoro's back to finish him. Pause. Zoro stands back up and faces him with open arms, shocking Mihawk. Zoro says to him, "Scars on the back is a swordsman's shame." All Mihawk responds with is "magnificent," and slashes Zoro's chest across, ending the duel. Mihawk is about to leave, but before he does, he yells at a barely half-awake Zoro that he has spared him, as he will wait at the top and to surpass him no matter what. Zoro lifts his sword in the air, stating to Luffy, "I swear that I'm not going to lose again, until I fight him and win. I swear to never lose again except against Arlong Park." Okay, that last part is untrue, but I had to. With tears running down his face. Seeing this moment for Sanji was a wake-up call. He questions why Zoro would throw away his life throughout the fight for a position. Luffy and Krieg start their fight after what went down. Sanji thinks Krieg is going to win against Luffy since Krieg has been dominating the first half. Krieg is the strongest pirate in the East Blue and is looked at as a powerhouse, except that there's always bigger fish in the sea, represented with Mihawk, which initially reassures what Sanji thinks about ambitions and dreams, but Luffy overcomes the impossible even with Krieg pretty much being an immovable object. This moment, along with Zoro's promise to Luffy, revives Sanji's dream. Krieg cheats his way towards the top using deception. It's implied in the series that even if pirates use these methods, it isn't wrong for the most part. There's no rule about being a pirate except certain morality and personal crew rules, but for the most part, everything is fair game. Even with that, Krieg vs Luffy is the perfect example on why people like Krieg limit themselves, considering his crew got wiped out by Mihawk as soon as he entered the Grand Line. Krieg prepared to make his dominant rule for the Grand Line, yet he failed to realize that he didn't prepare himself for what came lying in the sea, filled with the most dangerous people around the world. Krieg was afraid, yet he relied on his reputation to comfort him to distract himself from what just happened. Luffy was basically fighting someone who opposed his views on how he does stuff. Krieg is showing us that if you rely on deception and raw power, then they are bound to fail. Luffy might just bash his head towards the wall and hope for a different result, but Luffy knows this will work when it needs to because Krieg isn't an immovable object. He's just a golden wall that Luffy needs to tumble. That's where the good comes in for this arc. Zoro and Luffy show Sanji his ambitions are only a limitation if he makes them a limitation. Because even if Zoro lost, he obtained an ambition to continue on, and even if Luffy kept failing to take down Krieg, Luffy eventually took down the wall blocking his path. That's why at the end of this arc, we see Sanji smile asking Luffy if he thinks the All Blue truly exists. Sanji finally finds the ambition again, and Zeph is happy Sanji can finally move on from his past trauma by kicking out Sanji so he can join Luffy without any regret. Sanji breaks down in tears when he leaves with Luffy towards the Baratie members, thanking Zeph and the chefs for saving his life at his lowest.
いい子
いいのか挨拶
いいんだ
サンジ風
オーナーぜー長い間クソお世話になりました。このご恩は一生忘れません。寂しいぞ寂しいぞ
バカ野郎どもが男は黙って別れるもんだぜ。死をも恐れない信念さえあれば。
Sanji's ambitions and dreams being revived is the main message for this arc, considering that dreams have been a core of One Piece and shonen in general. Sanji was ready to accept his dedication towards Zeph, but failed to consider what Zeph wanted for him. Zeph threw away his old pirate life so Sanji can start his own path. I'm not going to do a whole character analysis yet for Sanji since I'm going to do that later in this video. But it's hard not to since I think people overlook Sanji's development in this arc with Zoro's match against Mihawk, even though they go hand in hand with each other. Same with Krieg's match against Luffy. I think this is the first real challenge Luffy faces considering Krieg, after he gets the life beaten out of him, stands up yelling to everyone that he is the strongest. He gets taken down by Jin, telling Krieg that it's over. Krieg has nothing more to prove because everyone knows what type of person he truly is. This whole arc connects amazingly with each other, as this is the first time we see the main trio learn from each other that people never tend to bring up. This was the start of the main trio indirectly helping each other at their lowest. I fucking love this arc for its many themes and resolutions Zoro and Sanji finally achieve to start their journey with the crew. Zoro realizes he can't just achieve the dream he wants in the position he is in, which changes him forever, and at the same time, Sanji realizes the All Blue is waiting for him because of Zeph. Zoro is a man who breaks down in tears because of the reality he faces knowing he hasn't been fulfilling the duties placed on him by Kuina and his teacher. He's only been just taking things laid back, seeing himself as superior, and Mihawk gives him that wake up call that there's people preventing him from reaching his goal. Sanji also breaks down knowing he hasn't actually paid back Zeph for his sacrifice. All Sanji has been doing is making excuses on why he doesn't want to leave because of the guilt building over the years, failing to consider what Zeph wants for him. Baratie is an arc of two men reviving their dreams again, because of the situations they have desperately been avoiding without realizing. It's the first to show us of the duo helping each other with Zoro's match resparking Sanji's dream, and Sanji deciding to watch over Luffy when Zoro heads to Arlong Park. It's that clearness of the situation that they finally realized they should start their journeys because of the people who helped them even make it as far as they could. Kuina and Zeph were pushy, so they ended up as people they could be proud of. Their lives ended abruptly, with Kuina's life actually ending, and Zeph ending his piracy career, so the other two can start theirs. The two just failed to see what they wanted, but they understand the people they respected did what they did.
I was raised in a broken and abusive household.
This chicken is cold!
When I turned 17, I ran away to Hong Kong, where I met Triad boss Kenny Wu, my first love.
Bitch! This chicken is cold!
Arlong Park is considered the best arc in the East Blue Saga, and I understand why completely. As much as I love Baratie arc, Arlong Park deserves that title by a mile. It was a turning point for people who stuck with One Piece instead of dropping it at Syrup Village. It wasn't for me, but I'll go into that in Alabasta. Regardless, this arc we finally see Nami's true character, as in the previous arc, she took the going merry with Zoro, Johnny, and Usopp chasing after her, leaving Luffy, Sanji, and Yosaku to resolve everything with Krieg's invasion. The good of this arc is the best moment in East Blue Saga, hands down. The things leading up to it is something I need to cover first, since it's what the saga has been building up to for Nami. The past arcs, Nami has pretty much been a mystery. Even if she said traveling with Luffy was just a partnership, it didn't feel like that, as it's obvious she enjoyed the time she had with them, especially in the Baratie arc. She was enjoying goofing off with the crew for a moment. Nami in the arc saw an unwanted poster, and it's noticeable that she wasn't fond of it due to resentment towards pirates. This isn't the case, as in Arlong Park, it's revealed that she belongs to a pirate group named the Arlong Pirates. She steals the going merry in the Baratie arc and arrives to Arlong Park where her original crew resides. When we're first shown Nami, we see a kid heading back to the park to fight the Arlong crew for killing his father. Nami indirectly saves the boy by beating some sense into him and giving him some cash, telling the boy to just give up on trying to rebel. He's just throwing his life away. Nami enters Arlong Park, where we see the pirate group is run by a species called fishmen. They're a species of more advanced human builds with ocean-based qualities. Arlong celebrates Nami's return after traveling for a while. At the same time, Usopp arrives with the other two to Arlong Park, but Zoro gets captured since Usopp leaves him tied up to the ship they came in, so he wouldn't cause trouble. Zoro's brought into Arlong Park, and Zoro questions what's going on. Nami's quick to degrade Zoro, saying him and Luffy are idiots for even trusting her. Whether Zoro knows something was off or not, Nami seems to be putting an act, as when the Arlong crew locks him up, Nami shortly freed Zoro, telling him that they should forget about her. As that's going on, Usopp fights some fishermen as he was being followed by them, but gets saved by Nami's sister, Nojiko. Nojiko brings Usopp and the boy Nami saved earlier, as he was also there at the time Usopp was being chased, to her home where Nami grew up. Usopp learns about Nami's involvement with Arlong's crew, even if Arlong is basically enslaving villages. He questions why Nami would even join the crew that enslaved her village, even if she helped him during the Syrup Village situation. Usopp pushes that thought behind and goes to Arlong Park to confront her for leaving them behind. Before that happens, Usopp sees Arlong questioning the chief of the village on why he has weapons. The chief, named Genzo, remains calm and responds saying if having a collection is wrong. Arlong is a very cautious man, telling him that he better not be planning anything. Arlong doesn't want to take any chances, so he's ready to kill him to set an example to the villagers. Usopp cannot take it anymore, so he shoots a projectile at Arlong to save Genzo. As they chase Usopp, Nami arrives at the village and we're shown her visiting a grave with Nojiko, telling her she only has 7 million berries to go to buy the village back from Arlong. The Arlong crew captures Usopp easily, and they come back to the park filled with injured fishmen caused by Zoro's havoc. They suspect Nami since she isn't straight up betraying people, and Nami shows a tattoo of Arlong's pirates pledging her loyalty. Arlong's crew still want to find Zoro and are contentious about killing Usopp to bait Zoro back to them. Nami starts to worry about her goals because she's so close to it and things might start to go wrong, so she kills Usopp, telling him she only cares for money and herself. That's why she would kill Usopp to prove she doesn't care for them. Usopp uses smoke to escape, but Nami closes the distance and stabs him with a knife. Usopp stands there horrified as he collapses towards the ocean behind him, and Johnny sees the incident unfold. After that, Luffy, Yosuka, and Sanji arrive to the island in the most unconventional way ever. Zoro tries to hurry to Usopp, catching wind of his capture until a big surprise reaches him, being Luffy's idiotic plan. Zoro yells at the three for crashing into an island like that, but tells them they have to go save Usopp. Johnny joins him with the unfortunate news that Nami has killed Usopp in cold blood. A navy ship comes to save the villagers and the island in general from Arlong's reign. At this moment, we're shown the raw, dominant power of the fishmen. They handle a single military ship with just 3 of them with ease. The villagers see what just unfolded, realizing there's no escape from Arlong. Luffy yells at Johnny, thinking he is lying. Nami comes from behind, confirming Johnny's story as well as telling Luffy why he's here. Luffy, not fazed for some reason, tells her he is here to get her, but Nami shuts him down, telling Luffy to leave. Luffy lays down and tells everyone he's going to take a nap, saying he's going to stay. Nami gets angry, yelling at Luffy to die if he wants to. We cut to Usopp alive and well. It's revealed Nami stabbed her own arm to prevent Usopp being stabbed himself. Usopp rushes to look for Zoro, and Sanji questions if Nami even killed Usopp, as his suspicions are confirmed when Usopp rejoins them to tell them what happened. Nojiko shortly arrives, telling the crew she'll tell them the backstory of their village, but they have to leave after. A Navy commander named Nezumi arrives at the same time and is revealed he's here to do an investigation on Nami's home. He is also working for Arlong in some way. Nojiko explains when they were younger, they were saved by a Navy soldier named Belmir. Her and Nami are actually not blood relatives. Belmir gives up her Navy career to adopt the 2 girls, and one day Genzo catches a younger Nami for stealing a navigation book. Genzo brings Nami to Belmir and tells her she needs to discipline Nami more, so Belmir teases around with him, saying it won't happen again. Genzo leaves frustrated because she's not taking him seriously about what her daughter did. Belmir tells Nami if she wanted the book, then she could have bought it for her. Nami didn't want to do that as financially they aren't doing well, but regardless, Belmir compliments Nami for having advanced mapping skills at a young age. They eat and Belmir makes clothing for Nami, but she doesn't enjoy them as they're just hand-me-downs from Nojiko. Nojiko and Nami argue about this. Nami says something out of line saying Nojiko isn't her real sister. Belmir doesn't take kindly to this, so she slaps Nami telling her not to say that again. As a child, I think we've all said things we regret, and I can't blame Nami for saying to Belmir that she wishes she was adopted into a rich family, since she's just a child wanting a better situation. This event basically leads to Nami becoming who she is today though. Nami runs away since Belmir tells her to leave out of retaliation, and Nojiko questions whether Belmir really meant what she said. Belmir tells her to just look for Nami so she can get dinner ready when they come back, trying to make amends. Nami is with Genzo telling him about what just happened, and Nami learns of her past with Nojiko and Belmir. The two girls were orphans of war, and Belmir gave up her navy life to raise the two. She rushed back to her hometown begging for the two girls to be saved, deciding to become their mother. Nami obtains a new appreciation for Belmir and regrets what she says. She prepares to leave with Nojiko, who found her, back home, but pirates invade the village. The pirates being the Arlong pirates. This is the earliest we see Arlong pirates establish their dominance over the East Blue. It's shown that they have little value towards humans, which stays a mystery to us until later in the series, but Arlong demands 100,000 berries for an adult and 50,000 berries for a child, and if someone doesn't pay, then they die. Genzo hides the two girls since he is unsure whether they have the money, but just as Arlong is about to leave, one of the crew members says there's another house, which is Nami's house, outside the village. Arlong's crew head there to investigate. Nami and Nojiko run back towards their home to warn Belmir, but the Arlong crew beats them there as Arlong beats up Belmir for fighting back. Arlong's crew discover 3 people live together because of the dinner plate. Genzo covers for her, saying she invited him for dinner and tells Belmir to give the 100,000 berries she barely has. As that happens, the two girls discover Arlong's crew don't know they exist because the records don't mention them, but to save Belmir, they have to leave the island forever. Nami cries, not wanting to leave, but she knows she has to do it, and they prepare to leave. Belmir tells the Arlong the 100,000 berries isn't for herself, it's for her daughters. Genzo yells at Belmir, but she says to him, even if it's just words, I still want to be called their mother. Those girls are my children. Nami and Nojiko run towards Belmir for a hug, as Belmir apologizes for not buying them the stuff they've always wanted. The two girls just wanted Belmir to live though. Arlong promises the girls will be safe, but since Belmir doesn't have the money for herself, she will die. Nami cries in desperation for someone to save her mother, and Genzo can't control his feelings, so he attacks the crew. He's taken out very quickly though. Arlong tells Belmir if she has any last words, then she will be an example. Belmir tells her daughters, I love you. And like that, Oda makes a heartbreaking story of two daughters losing her mother. This isn't the good of this arc, believe it or not, but I just want to appreciate this backstory a lot. I'm sorry I have to basically cover the entirety of this arc, but how can I not when Nami throughout the arc has been protecting everyone in her village because of this incident? Arlong promises to sell Nami the village if she has 100 million berries. Until then, she has to join Arlong's crew because of her charting skills. The village hates Nami for this, considering her mother sacrificed her life. Nami feels directly responsible for her death, as Belmir couldn't live with the fact that she made Nami want to run away. We don't know what would have happened if Nami never said what she said to Nojiko or Belmir. I have a good feeling Belmir would have been alive today if Nami didn't act like a brat. Everything Nami has done in this arc and before has been her fighting a battle alone to compensate for what she feels is her fault. She lies to people close to her, she manipulates the people she hates or respects, and she continuously pushes away people so she can help those she cares about. The whole arc, Nami has been protecting the Straw Hats. She worries for their safety, so she pushes them away even if she wants to join them in their journey. She has a promise that she will fulfill to Belmir, and is to save the village that saved her family back when the three were on the verge of death. Nami's original path in life is one filled with loneliness, self-hatred, and regret. Nami's fight is a lonely one, as she accepted her path in life, as all hope has left her. This is peak backstory writing in terms of side story character. There's only a few members that will have this quality of writing, but Nami's backstory is unique because it's the first arc that we completely revolved around a character to this caliber, and I love it so much. Everything connects together naturally, and nothing's out of place for the writing, as every event in the arc makes sense that elevates the good part of this event, which I will start covering. After Nojiko tells the Straw Hats on what just happened, they want to help Nami even more, but Nojiko tells them to just leave. Shinto leads Nezumi and his man to Nami's home. Luffy follows them for reasons. Nezumi arrives and tells Nami that they're here to search her home for thievery due to her being a pirate. Nami warns them she belongs to the crew, but Nezumi says that even so, he did not receive any reports of that. Nami tries to stop the soldiers, saying how come they haven't arrested Arlong due to his reign over the island. Nezumi says why should he listen to a criminal like her. They dig up the tangerine farm and Nami retaliates back. Genzo stands up for Nami, saying why would they take away the money meant for the villagers as they've known about Nami's plan. When Nojiko arrives, she calls out the Navy for not helping, and Nami realizes Arlong is behind this. Nami questions questions him, but Nezumi basically admits he worked for Arlong, which makes Nami get frustrated. Nami tries to stop the investigation any way she can. The soldiers shoot at them, which causes Nojiko to get hurt. Luffy arrives wondering what's going on, seeing the wreckage unfold. Nami yells at him out of frustration and she rushes to Arlong Park. Nami screams at Arlong why would he break his promise to buy the village. Arlong tells her when did he actually break his promise to her, laughing at Nami. Arlong tells Nami to save up again. If she dares to run away, then he will kill everyone in the village, as Arlong plans to use Nami to take over the East Blue. Nami runs towards the village. Gensoro rallies the villagers, catching wind of what just happened since they can't let Nami's hard work be for nothing. Just as they are prepared to head to Arlong Park, Nami arrives telling them she can just save up again, making up excuses to stop them. Gensoro hugs Nami, reassuring her that she doesn't have to fight for them anymore. The villagers plan to throw away their lives so Nami can leave the island to live her life free from any burden. Nojiko tells Nami she's the only one who can survive out at sea, and Nami tries one last time to stop them. Jinzo yells at Nami to move out of the way. The villagers march towards Arlong Park, and Nami's too weak to do anything. We finally get the good of this arc, and words will never describe the best moment in the East Blue saga. So, I'll just show you.
何よ、何も知らないくせに。8年間この島で何があったのか知らないくせに。
ああ、知らね
え。あんたには関係ないから島から出てきって言ったでしょ。
ああ、言われた。
出てけ、あんたなんか出てけ、出てけ、出てけ、出てけ、出てけ、出てけ、出てけ、出てけ。
俺の宝物に触るな。
ルフィ。
行くぞ。
おい、大丈夫か、あんたたち。アーロンにやられたのか。
どいてくれ。俺たちは魚人どもに用があってきた。
ナミの姉貴の真実を知った今、俺たちにできることはアーロンを倒すことのみ。そう思ってアーロンに挑んだんだ。
だが紙一重で負けちまった。
悪いが正気もねえあんたたちにこの扉は譲れねえ。
何？
あしらはここへやってくるある男たちを待ってるんでね。
ある男たち？
命を懸けてもあの人たちは必ずやってくる。来た！
あいつら。
彼らが一体何だというのだ。
あの人たちでどうにもできねえ相手なら もはやこの島だけじゃねえ。イーストブルーの未来に希望はねえ。
運命を変えに来たあの4人の顔をその目にしっかり刻みつけておくんだな。
どいてくれ。
おい、さっきの間抜けな2人組はゾロの一味だと思うが。
ゾロのそれにシャイ弱すぎる。殺す価値もねえぜ。
まったくだ。
This is the first moment our crew members assemble together to help a member in need, and wow is all I can say. Nami crying out for help for the first time in her life is something that touches the heartstrings completely. She refuses to ask for help, but in desperation, she puts her pride aside to ask for help from Luffy and the crew. It feels like 10 years of storytelling were put into one arc that leads into this one moment, and it's done amazingly. It is the definition of peak storytelling and character writing in the East Blue Saga. Luffy doesn't hesitate to help either. Nami thought she just needed to fight this alone, but the crew was always willing to help regardless. Luffy was just waiting for Nami to muster up her words and ask for assistance because, like I said before, Nami is willing to fight this alone, but early on in the series, Luffy isn't going to help unless someone asks. He won't hesitate to step in at times though. Just like Sanji and Baratie, Nami basically accepted her path in life. Luffy doesn't tend to give up on people so easily. He doesn't abandon his friends or the people who earn his respect. Closure is one of the main themes of this arc. After Luffy and the crew defeat the Arlong pirates, Nami is able to forgive herself by visiting Belmir's grave to make amends with her past. The last panel of this arc is a pinwheel Genzo wore and a tangerine from Nami's home. The tangerine is an obvious symbolic reference, but Genzo's pinwheel is something that means many things. Genzo wore this pinwheel since Nami loved it as a baby. The pinwheel can represent the wheel of fate and life we follow, and this wheel will never define who we are, but they will set up events in our life that will help us build our character. We might not like what the wheel will lead to, but even if things start off rough, even if it leads to outcomes we don't like, the wheel will eventually help us find the people who will eventually lead us to find closure in life, to find ourselves. And Nami finally being able to move on is a good representation for a lot of characters in the crew throughout One Piece. She's the first to leave her past behind so she can use the opportunity her mother gave her. This is a story of a mother sacrificing her life to tell her daughters it wasn't their fault about what happened. She will always love them and to live another day as a way to remember her. It's a parent's job to protect their children even if they are not blood related. Nami understood what Belmir did for her, yet she never truly understood why Belmir did what she did for her until she got freed from this burden. Belmir telling her daughters I love you was the ultimate act of motherly care one can do for their kids, and Nami finally understood why she did what she did after she was free from Arlong's control. She was telling Nami to pursue her dreams, and when the village decided to sacrifice their lives, Nami just couldn't let the people she was trying to save do what Belmir did. Genzo was the one Nami could go to when she was little, and when she did everything in her power to save everyone, Genzo felt like he failed Belmir and as a man. I love the walk to Arlong Park. It's one of the many outstanding moments in pre-time skip, and we get these moments this early on in the series. The walk represented the bond the Straw Hats must show for the crew to survive, and they all showed each other they will support the crew through thick and thin, even if they all just met. Before our crew members go to the Grand Line to find the One Piece, they stop by a town closest to the Red Line entrance called Logue Town. This is the last stop before venturing towards the Red Line, and is also the town where Goldie Roger grew up and was executed in, so its popularity is well known across the series. When a man achieves his goals, what does he do? Goldie Roger started the race towards the One Piece, going for 20 years in the series, and is the reason why Luffy inspires to be the greatest pirate. Roger is still a character of mystery, as we don't know his full backstory, similar to someone like Shanks, which is probably why we barely get anything on him, but that's besides the point. It's a fitting setting for an arc since it's right before Luffy truly starts his journey with an actual crew he can call family. Where Roger's story ends, Luffy's journey begins. It makes sense why Luffy was interested in the platform where Roger was executed. The parallel of Roger and Luffy is so obvious that the good of this arc ends up being what Roger did in his final moments that Luffy replicated. After Orange Town, Boogie slowly gets back his crew along with Alvida and wants revenge on Luffy for humiliating him. Boogie ends up being at Logue Town at the same time Luffy and plans to execute Luffy as a stance towards his name. Boogie also wants to destroy the Going Merry, and it seems like his plan was going to work. Buggy successfully gets Luffy locked into the platform as the Straw Hats rush to stop Buggy's plan since a storm is coming, as well as the Navy commander named Smoker is also planning to capture every pirate in Logue Town. Zoro and Sanji rush to save Luffy, and Nami and Usopp rush to get their boat ready to leave Logue Town. Buggy tells Luffy if he has any last words, and Luffy yells towards everyone, "I'm the man who'll become the Pirate King." Zoro and Sanji desperately rush faster towards the platform, but Buggy tells them they're too late, as Luffy tells the duo, "Sorry, but looks like I'm dead," with a smile.
ゾロ、サンジ、
悪い俺死んだ
バカなことを
笑った。
After Boogie swings his sword, time felt like it stopped for a second. Smoker and his Navy soldiers were waiting nearby as all of this unfolded. They wanted Boogie to kill Luffy to make their job easier. Smoker watched Luffy's head about to get capacitated by Boogie, but saw Luffy smile the whole time, even at the face of death. Smoker thinks to himself he smiled the same way that the King of Pirates did 22 years ago in that very spot. He questions why Luffy would even smile in that moment like that. Out of some miracle, either due to luck or from an outside factor that is unsure to this day, lightning strikes the platform, which ends up saving Luffy's life. Luffy gets up and laughs like nothing just happened, which gives the Straw Hats the opportunity to leave Logue Town. The crew make it to the Red Line, and as they're about to enter, they make a promise to each other as a symbol to their new beginnings. Sanji states to find the All Blue, Zoro states to be the greatest swordsman, Nami states to draw the map of the world, Usopp states to become the brave warrior of the sea, and Luffy states to become the king of pirates. The Straw Hats end their old life towards a new one. This arc ages better the more backstory stuff we get of Roger. I'm surprised Luffy was willing to die here. In every life or death scenario, Luffy tries to get out of the situation because he hasn't become Pirate King yet. Here though, he wasn't afraid. Roger himself wasn't afraid either. The day he died was like something he was looking forward to. I can theorize why Luffy wanted to not retaliate back at that moment. I think it was a moment of Roger taking over Luffy in a sense. Not literally obviously, but as in Luffy wanting a perspective of what the King of Pirates felt in that moment. Luffy questioned if Roger was afraid in this moment or not. He wonders, what did the King of Pirates feel in this moment? Like something he needed to know. When Buggy did lock him in the podium, Luffy did intend to escape at first, but he realized this was a perfect moment to find out. Luffy being Luffy got the better of him and prepared to see if he was truly ready to take the path towards the Red Line. It was one last question he needed to get answered before anything, like he was pushing his luck. Even if Buggy was a centimeter of cutting his head off, no worries troubled him. He was pushing the engineers of this world, saying, "Am I worthy?" into the Grand Line to find the treasure Roger left to the world. Luffy should have never pushed his luck to this extent, yet he did. Why is that? Because Roger did. Roger took the chance to be crowned as the King of Pirates, and Luffy decided to take the risk like the King of Pirates would. Either due to luck or gods we don't know of intervening, Luffy lived, giving him his answer. I wonder what Oda plans for this arc in the future, because I think Luffy will have his Roger moment in a future event for sure. Logue Town is a very simple arc, but it's such a fitting one for the crew since the Grand Line will be a turning point in their lives to start anew, as all of them have a chance to make their dreams a reality due to Luffy's help. Ending the East Blue Saga this way is a good send-off for the Straw Hats as they get ready for the next saga, Alabasta. The Alabasta saga is the reason why I stuck with One Piece, as watching the series for the first time made me want to quit because of how questionable the pacing can be, but this saga is when I became a fan. What I want to do now for this part of the section is to just go over the good of the Alabasta saga, instead of going arc by arc, like I did for the East Blue, because I just want to cover moments from the saga that stuck with me. There were key factors in my interest in the series. Plus some of these arcs are kind of short in terms of chapters, so I think it's suitable if I do this, as some of the good of these arcs really build up towards the actual Alabasta arc. This is the crew's first adventure in the Grand Line as well. The Alabasta arc feels like an actual journey arc than any other arc we get in One Piece. We get a lot of moments with the crew interacting more like friends and crew members, since I feel like that's the reason why I enjoy this saga much more than any other saga in the series. One Piece in its core is supposed to feel like an adventure not for the main characters, but for us, and while East Blue did a decent job on this, Alabasta really pushes the adventure narrative amazingly towards us. One of the best examples is in Whiskey Peak.
Watch where you walking, bitch!
What did you... Wait a minute. I'm white!
The crew party with the people of the town congratulating them for making it to the Grand Line. At first they seem genuine. The crew members take upon their offer to celebrate. It's revealed that the town works for an organization called Baratie Works. The members lead newcomers to party with them so they can steal their valuables when the new pirate group are passed out on liquor and food. The organization thinks they can get away with this. Zoro is awake since the madman can drink more than my uncle in an average Mexican party. The organization don't worry since it's 100 of them, and just one swordsman. They shouldn't worry, right? Yeah, they get humbled real quick. Like Zoro was just casually slicing them through with his new swords from Logue Town. And really think about it, Zoro's the first member in the crew to catch wind from the Navy. The Marines reference Zoro's feat with the 100 members when they give Zoro and Luffy new bounties after Alabasta. Obviously they could have figured it out after Alabasta conflicts. Regardless, he was the first to catch wind in the Grand Line, which gives Zoro a pretty strong start towards his journey into swordsmanship. The funniest part of the Whiskey Peak situation is when Luffy initially thinks Zoro murdered everyone and gets mad only because he got fed.
Luffy!
It's good to see you, buddy.
I feel bad for very early One Piece fans, as I bet most of y'all thought you were gonna get an official Zoro versus Luffy moment. And I thought so too, until Nami came to stop them. It's one of the earliest we get to see of Oda just trolling One Piece fans, because I think the question of Zoro versus Luffy is a genuine question that a lot of people think of, since the two need to get strong to achieve their dreams. Nami gets a lot of funny comic relief in the saga, mostly to get the crew back in order. She's the voice of reasons for a lot of these situations. One of the unfortunate events that happen in Whiskey where Nami steps up is when Vivi, aka my wife, first introduces her true identity to the crew, asking for help as she needs to take down Baroque Works to save Alabasta. Vivi's servant Igaram decides to bait the crew to trick Baroque Works so the crew and Vivi can sail to Alabasta safely. Igaram wishes farewell and sails off, but unfortunately the ship gets blown up, leaving nothing. The crew stares horrified on what just happened. Vivi just looks at the explosion, refraining her emotions, but Nami embraces her, promising Igaram's sacrifice won't be in vain. It's so unexpected because One Piece tone has always had these elements hidden through its wacky characteristics. Yet this moment is especially unexpected since this is the crew's first experience into the Grand Line, seeing what it can hold. With Nami's promise, Vivi pushes down her feelings. She knows Igaram's sacrifice can't be for nothing. One character we also get to see frequently is Miss Sunday, aka Nico Robin, surprise surprise. Robin's first introduction towards the crew isn't anything with malicious intent. Instead, she just teases the crew with her charming, mysterious aura. It's apparent Robin can take them all down quickly and has a mission to take out Vivi, but Robin's interest in Luffy is what makes her out to be more than just a Baroque member. Robin offers the crew with a log post to Alabasta. Luffy rejects, saying they don't need it. Nami gets mad at Luffy, saying why would he reject someone who's trying to help. Luffy says he's the captain and they will go where he wants to on his own route. Whether Robin was genuine at this moment is something I debate about. This is something she would do considering her history throughout the series with people of her interest. I think this was a test, which now that I say that, it probably was a test. If Luffy accepted the log post directly towards Alabasta, then his crew would have been caught immediately because Crocodile ordered Mr. 2 to capture Mr. 3, so the events would have played out differently. Yes, this only happens because of Mr. 3's failure to eliminate the Straw Hats, but ignoring hypothetical scenarios, since this isn't a what if Goku busted down sexual style with Beerus type of video, Robin wouldn't have been interested in Luffy if Luffy accepted her offer. Luffy's reason to reject the log post wasn't because of an intellectual decision, it was Luffy's gut feeling. Luffy doesn't really think of the decision he makes during his journey. It's a pattern that he just says fuck it, we ball, and does the whatever happens happens mentality. Robin finds it intriguing that Luffy's decision isn't based on logic or reasoning, just his gut, and Robin keeps tabs on the crew throughout the saga because of the decision Luffy makes. This decision ends up almost costing a crew's member's life, but it also ends up becoming a saving grace for the crew as well. I say that because the crew heads to Little Garden as an alternate route to Alabasta.
Nigga, that is you can't fuck that lad, dog. Get out of here. I'm bringing it up. Fuck you. Go back.
My favorite moments from this arc is Dory vs. Brogy easily. Little Garden irony comes from its name. As you can guess, not everything is little compared to the average person at least. It's like if a kid took his favorite things and stuck it in an area, since dinosaurs and giants are what stick out when the crew arrives. You have two giants fighting, what's cooler than that? Even the male crew members love the two fighting, especially Usopp. He looks up to them because they are the representation of brave warriors of the sea. The duo giants were fighting for 100 years over which creature they slaughtered was bigger, which ends up being a parallel to Sanji's and Zoro's competitions in the beginning of the arc. Their fight is an awe-striking moment for Usopp. It hits hard when 3 ends up interfering with the competition, and it ends with Brogy winning due to Dory getting injured from the drink spiked with explosives. Luffy tries to stop Dory, worrying he might get killed, but Dory's love for battle is what touches Usopp and many other members. He doesn't want to create excuses, he just wants to fight with all his strength like the warrior the two were raised. Brogy notices Dory's condition in the fight, but takes the victory. Even if there was cheating involved, Dory wouldn't have wanted him to hold back because Dory was fighting with his awe. It's very sad to watch this fight, seeing a man struggle to fight back. It's very touching that Brogy doesn't hold back, as any sign of it would have embarrassed his lifelong friend. This consideration is pushed further with Brogy crying on the ground, knowing the battle was rigged by Baroque Works, and their century battle is cut short. The manliest man was crying because of his friend giving him the victory, even if it wasn't on fair terms. Why do the two giants fight? It's simple, it's their livelihood, it's built into their blood at birth. The nation of Elbaf raised them to be proud of their loud, aggressive nature, and the government only manages to have a chokehold on them because of the number and influence they have on the land of giants. Many nations want to harness this power for themselves, yet giants like Brogy and Dory don't like to use their power to hurt people, they just want to hurt each other. Just because the giants are filled with this aggressive nature doesn't mean they use it for malice intent. That's why Little Garden was sort of a paradise for the giants. The average person could never survive with this evident supply of human remains, and it seems like it was culture to the giants to have their battle free from the world. Their long lives made it seem like time froze to have the cinematic battle they were always supposed to have, and Brogy crying is a testament of that time they spent together. Knowing his brother gave him the victory broke him because Dory was on his last leg, giving it his all. Usopp can admire this love of battle that is ingrained with the giants and strives to be this. Being a brave warrior of the sea is acknowledging that it isn't just overall generalization of what a man could be in a traditional sense. It's about compassion for the people you care about, and understanding that compassion by giving you a reason to grow stronger. Usopp is a very emotional person, but this event is a key point that he thinks about a lot. Understanding it's okay to be emotional. You just need to be able to control your emotions to be better. Eventually the two giants and the crew take down the Barak members, and we get some backstory that a little white girl basically gaslit them into competition, which ends up being funny considering the smallest person ended up having the biggest impact towards their life. Again, the irony is very loud in this arc. The little girl is long dead probably, maybe not, but she started a 100-year fight that ended up connecting the two giants even further. Giants tend to live longer lives, yet the girl's impact lives on with them to this day. The two giants find a great new respect for the people smarter than them, knowing that ordinary people don't have as much time in their lives to live, so they use the fraction of the time they have compared to the giants to achieve the biggest goals that a giant can only imagine. So the two decide to help the Straw Hats on their way to Drum Island. Anyways, the mistake Luffy ends up making is Nami being sick, since a bug from Little Garden gives her a virus. The crew needs to decide to take their chances at Alabasta to get a doctor, or go to an island named Drum Island so they can find a doctor. This ends up being Luffy's real test as a captain, since one of his crew members faces potential death and him not coming well prepared in a Grand Line as they have no doctor in the crew yet. Luffy decides to head to Drum Island, and this decision ends up being a blessing in disguise. Drum is an island that specializes in doctors, so Luffy needs a doctor in his crew to prevent future scenarios like this. They head there, and the whole island is on edge because of Wapol, who the crew met earlier. Luffy asks for a doctor, saying one of his crew members are sick, but the villagers of Drum Island tell them to turn back. Vivi gets shot trying to stop Luffy from retaliating, but it only grazes her arm. Luffy is even more frustrated as Nami needs help. Vivi tells Luffy that he needs to cooperate no matter the circumstances, because if he decides to fight the villagers, then they won't help. Luffy realizes this isn't the time to fight, and he calms down, begging for the villagers to help his crew. The villagers agree to the request and take them to their village. The crew follow the villagers, and they learn that the island only has one doctor because of Wapol having a monopoly on the island's medical field. The doctor is named Kureha, and she only comes down once a month from the large mountain area she lives in. Luffy decides he needs to take Nami over there by foot, considering that Kureha just visited the villagers not too long ago, so Sanji decides to join in. The two journey their way with Luffy carrying Nami on his back, and the journey ends up being a hell in snow. They get attacked by large bunny creatures, as well as barely surviving an avalanche that ends up knocking out Sanji, since Sanji pushed Luffy and Nami out of the way of the avalanche impact. The climb is where we see Luffy's desperation at its highest. He's begging himself to make it up, since he's carrying both Nami and Sanji, knowing one wrong move can end them all. This desperation is one of many challenges Luffy faces being a captain, and he eventually makes it, asking for Kureha to save his crew members first before him. The three end up safe, and we meet a creature named Chopper for the first time. Chopper is a very shy animal, and Nami catches onto this quickly, so she asks Chopper to join their crew, which Chopper refuses due to past trauma. The good for this part of the story is Chopper's backstory and his refusal to move on from his guilt. The way Chopper ends up being the way he is physically is that he was a deer with a blue nose, which made him an outcast from his species, but he comes across the human-human fruit, which made Chopper a human-deer hybrid. This decision to eat the fruit causes him to be more of an outcast from his species, along with the villagers considering him a monster. The villagers attack Chopper out of fear, and he walks back to the forest at the brink of death. Chopper is prepared to die, but a doctor named Hiruluk saves his life. Hiruluk takes care of Chopper, and Chopper sees him as a father figure, as meeting Hiruluk gives him purpose to keep going again. Hiruluk teaches Chopper about medicine along with the expansion that the world holds beyond the island they reside on. Chopper's childlike wonder thaws from his frozen heart for the first time, with Hiruluk encouraging Chopper to find something he wants to do later in his life, teaching him that the world holds many things he could set out to discover. And Hiruluk shares his dream to Chopper about wanting to create a cure for every disease, as he thinks he is close to the result, but needs one more thing. Unexpectedly, Hiruluk chases Chopper away, and it's because Hiruluk doesn't want Chopper to find out about the truth. Chopper learns about this overhearing Hiruluk and Kureha's conversation on how Hiruluk thinks every disease can be cured by healing the heart. He was told he was about to die many years ago by doctors, but seeing cherry blossoms one day caused something to either heal his condition or extend his life. Hiruluk has spent years perfecting this phenomenon, even though Kureha logically disagrees with him since this would have never worked on anyone. Hiruluk is optimistic since he is close to finding this all-disease cure. Chopper decides to look for this mushroom that Hiruluk needs, and it's a journey of physical and emotional pain. Chopper finds the mushroom and comes back to Hiruluk's place with bruises and injuries, saying he wants Hiruluk to live. This act emotionally breaks Hiruluk, since Chopper was willing to save his life even if Hiruluk pushes him away. Hiruluk completes its work by eating the mushroom and decides to do one more thing. He tells Chopper to wait in his place in the meantime. Kureha finds out about Wappo's plan and heads to Hiruluk's place to stop him, but Chopper tells her Hiruluk should be fine because of the mushroom he gave him. Chopper soon learns the mushroom is poisonous, and the skull in the book doesn't mean pirate, but it means poisonous. Hiruluk didn't want Chopper's effort to go to waste, so he decides to eat the mushroom even if it kills him. Chopper goes to the mountaintop where Wappo lives to try to catch up with him. Hiruluk is baited to come help doctors who aren't sick. This was a start to Wappo's monopoly on the doctors of the island. Hiruluk is relieved no one is actually hurt. Wappo decides he will kill Hiruluk, seeing him as a threat. Hiruluk says to Wappo,
人はいつ死ぬと思う？心臓をピストルで撃ち抜かれた時？違う。不治の病に侵された時？違う。猛毒キノコのスープを飲んだ時？違う。人に忘れられた時さ。俺が消えても俺の夢は叶う。病んだ国民の心もきっと救えるさ。なぜに泣く？ドルトン君。国も同じだろうか。受け継ぐ者がいりゃあな。おいおいドルトン、てめえ何泣いてやがる。まあもうすぐここに化け物がやってくる。俺の息子だ。手出すなよ。安心しろチョッパー。お前のキノコじゃ俺は死なねえ。まったくいい人生だった。
あばよやぶ医者。
ありがとよチョッパー。
This moment is heartbreaking. Hiruluk's life work in a grand scheme of things, in terms of medicine, is completely useless at face value. Cherry blossoms can't heal any literal disease or conditions, but he still believed in it to the end because of Chopper. Chopper contains the guilt that Hiruluk died because of his actions. Chopper learns that he was going to die regardless, but Hiruluk was able to give Chopper that courage to study medicine, and it's apparent Kureha understood this. She promises to teach Chopper due to Hiruluk asking her to. Kureha launches cherry blossoms in the sky of Drum Island, which Chopper sees, giving Chopper the closure he always needed. The same cherry blossoms that extended Hiruluk's life finally healed someone. That someone was his son. Chopper's guilt is understandable. He did kill Hiruluk, there's no denying it, even with Hiruluk going out like the guy in Dead Space 3. Chopper has always blamed himself for Hiruluk's death because of his lack of knowledge. It doesn't help that Kureha basically hammered this thought into Chopper by yelling at him for being an idiot. Kureha felt responsible for pushing that guilt further by keeping Hiruluk's word and helping Chopper. She also continued Hiruluk's research as a tribute to his life when Drum Island needed the most healing from the tyranny of Wappo. All Kureha wanted the most was to help Chopper move on from his grief and to finally continue the legacy Hiruluk passed to his son. Kureha pushed Chopper to finally move on when he had the chance, but to make it on his own terms. That's why she chased Chopper away to hide her feelings. She was going to miss him after all this time they spent together. Not before she launched the cherry blossoms, because Chopper seeing the cherry blossoms cured his broken heart, realizing Hiruluk's will lives on with him. Chopper's crying was years of heartache finally healing the pain he was experiencing, all due to him thinking he killed Hiruluk from his mistake. Hiruluk's legacy cured Chopper, and all Kureha needed to do was to be the messenger, seeing as Chopper still had some doubts joining the crew. The cherry blossoms were a message to Chopper to live his life with a family that could make him as happy as Hiruluk did. He was hesitant in joining the Straw Hats beforehand, but now Chopper's healed heart will grow with his new family out at sea. The little boy can now be what Hiruluk's failed at and find a cure to every disease in the world as a promise to his father. We finally arrive in Alabasta. I'm just gonna be straight up. The good of this arc and the Alabasta saga is during Alubarna. Two moments just make this whole arc for me. Zoro versus 1 and Vivi's desperation throughout the arc trying to save everyone. These two moments have the biggest impact in the story since Zoro's fight is the first roadblock he faces and Vivi's desperation is about a princess trying to save her home from internal conflict that was caused by manipulation. First, Zoro versus 1. The saga of Alabasta was showing Zoro constantly training after his match against Mihawk. The event gave him a motivation that there's more to swordsmanship than he knows, and the question that lingers himself is something is missing, since Mihawk was able to cut steel. This constant showing of training is so obvious, but I just never caught on to it considering it's just bits and pieces of it. Regardless, it's something Oda was teasing about throughout the saga, and his match against One is a perfect one, considering he needs to cut steel, so he faces a steel man. In the beginning, Zoro and One seem about even, but things turn south quickly. One, out of nowhere, just starts bothering Zoro with utter disrespect. One was just manhandling Zoro like the average alcoholic dad 5 beers in, and is ready to hit his son refusing to get him another one. One gets a critical hit on Zoro, which leaves Zoro in a moment of enlightenment, you can say. Zoro remembers the words of his teacher in this moment. A young Zoro is asking his teacher if there are swordsmen who can cut anything. His teacher shows Zoro him fitting to cut a piece of paper with his sword, which leaves young Zoro confused, but Zoro's teacher says, there are some who can't cut anything, but that same swordsman can slash through metal, using the same sword. The strongest sword can protect and destroy what it wants. A sword that can harm anything isn't a real sword to me. Young Zoro doesn't quite understand what he meant until present Zoro finally understands what his teacher is saying. The wielder of the sword determines what his blade should cut and what not to cut. Zoro learns he can't just cut steel with strength alone, but pure determination and allowing his blade to do so. He needs to visualize cutting steel and visualize not cutting it, since this moment becomes a prerequisite to Haki later on in the story. A lot of people give credit to Oda saying Haki has been planned from the very beginning, as this becomes one of the earliest examples of it, but I disagree very heavily with this. People don't realize in writing things can be accidental, and that's okay. Not everything needs to be planned, since I do think Oda has some sort of plan for another power system, as well as Oda probably having a rough draft of the story. I don't think he had a plan for Haki at this time though. Maybe Skypiea, but not this arc. This is a test in Zoro's swordsmanship and a beginning to Zoro finally having a grasp to learn how to master his swords. Besides Mihawk, this is the closest we see Zoro having a proper 1v1 against the closest swordsman-like opponent. This isn't supposed to be a battle of honor, it's more like a battle of skill between the two. Zoro needs to be able to handle the fruit users in the future, making this fight a first step to see if he can truly handle the Grand Line. Zoro's concentration is what eventually lets him cut steel, since before the decisive blow between the two, he hears out his swords under the rubble as well as the life essence of non-living objects. Breathing is the main factor that Zoro learns from this revelation at the climax of his fight. Bro think he a demon slayer. He basically visualizes inanimate objects as living things in the fight because he can't look at steel as an object but a living creature. His focus through the saga was to cut steel through training, and he kept missing the big picture on why he should cut steel. He thinks there are levels to swordsmanship, which there are, but not in the way he thinks. This is why after this moment, we never see Zoro attempt to cut stuff like diamond or amethyst, because this revelation of cutting what you need becomes necessary to Zoro's journey as a sword master. You don't become a swordsman cutting steel, you become a swordsman understanding why you need to cut steel. And that's why it's one of the goods of this arc, as well as one of Zoro's best moments in the series. Zoro getting that big picture of why his teacher told him about cutting nothing was helping him in the moment closest to losing a battle. He had a roadblock due to his negligence back before his match with Mihawk and didn't know why. Him losing to Mihawk did help him break that negligence, yet it manifested some sort of doubt in Zoro's mind trying to live up to Mihawk's word of him saying he'll wait for Zoro at the top. Zoro's answer was never through training physically, he needed to follow the principles of the mind, body, and soul to understand what he lacked going forward. It explains why Zoro was having trouble finding the answer to cut steel until he heard his sword cry out to him. He wasn't attuned with his blade and his blade was letting him know in that moment. It's the same teachings that Soul Reapers go through to unlock Bankai, just with Zoro, it was to cut nothingness itself. I wonder why Oda wouldn't show Diamond going forward, and it was to show a foundation what steel means in the One Piece verse. In Wano, we were shown blades being alive, choosing their users at times, explaining how Zoro was hearing his blade during the moment of battle. Oda illustrated how Zoro's swords will look in human form. The creators of the blades had some sort of patenting effect to the swords, causing them to have a look-alike to its creator. With this reasoning, it explains a piece of steel can be alive depending on either the wielder or the creator. Zoro vs. One is a reflection of that, with One showing his understanding of steel and Zoro understanding what steel is in that moment, eventually with Zoro winning the match with a new concession to his path of swordsmanship.
あとは俺に本当に鋼鉄を切る力があるかどうかだ。
刀一本で俺の技を受け切れるとは思えねえが。
いいんだ。もう受けねえ。
覚悟ありか。上等。
一刀流居合。獅子孫孫。
アトミックスパート。
礼を言う。俺はまだまだ強くなれる。
本当にこの勝負の間に成長しちまいやがった。次はダイヤでも切ろうってのか。
そりゃもったいねえだろ。
参ったぜ。
The reason why I haven't talked much about Vivi is because I was saving her for this part specifically. Vivi is one of the few princesses in the series that actually does shit instead of crying like a little bitch the whole time. People see her as another Nami considering they are very similar in terms of looks and backstory, but regardless, she feels like an actual character instead of being on the sidelines like other princesses in the story. Vivi is very cool-headed and can ration the good of a bad situation. In Drum Island, she was the one who was able to calm down Luffy to not start trouble with the villagers to get Nami help. Vivi is also the one with the plan to try to stop Crocodile even when she's trapped in every corner. Vivi takes action when it's required instead of hesitating in the moment, and knows when words can be important. Her experience in the sea toughened her up to save Alabasta. Vivi's trying with what she's capable of. That's why it becomes very hard to watch her desperation trying to stop her people from killing each other. Earlier before the crew started their plans, Luffy tells Vivi if she wants his help, she has to be willing to understand people will die. Vivi punches Luffy for acting like this, but Luffy punches her back like a 40s husband, explaining to her that Vivi can't save everyone. Vivi cries a bit facing this likely scenario. It's a test towards her character if she can handle what lies ahead. Luffy wants to help Vivi the most, but Vivi needs to be willing to accept the results of what happens even if she stops Crocodile's plan. This is so tense to watch as this is the closest Vivi has gotten stopping Crocodile ever since her undercover infiltration of Baroque Works. Vivi before meeting the crew had to sacrifice her position to save Alabasta. It was very naive to think Vivi can ever take them down by herself. She was still willing to make that sacrifice for her people to prevent Crocodile's plan. Vivi's love for Alabasta is very shown heavily in the arc and I love it. Her connection with Koza and his dad is a prime example of what makes me appreciate Oda's writing for side characters in certain arcs like these. Vivi, when she was young, didn't abuse the position she was given in life and took upon herself to take the role her father taught her to treat her peers as close as possible to her. Her father regularly sacrificed funds of his castle to give back to the people when they needed it because the kingdom of Alabasta is only alive with its citizens. The people are Alabasta, not the Nefertari family. Without those people, there's only sand. Vivi, like Nami, has been fighting a battle by herself and was prepared to accept her original outcome of what she wanted. But meeting Luffy helped her realize that sacrifices needed to be made. Her breaking point is the taking race against Crocodile's nuke-type bomb. Crocodile places a bomb on the clock tower as the last thing to finalize his major plans to take out Alabasta. One big bang to end it all. The crew, at the literal last minute, help Vivi get up to the tower where Crocodile's bomb stands to blow up the Alabasta capital. It's a very tense race against time. Every panel during this moment felt like this was the last thing, besides beating Crocodile, building up to stop Crocodile's ultimate plan. With everyone's effort, they get Vivi towards the top to have her stop the bomb. Vivi stops the fuse, thinking she has finally settled the events of Alabasta, but she still hears ticking. It's revealed Crocodile expected this and planted a secret timer to the bomb that explodes a few more seconds after the fuse fails. Vivi and the crew panic as they don't have the strength or time to move the bomb away from the capital. Vivi realizes Crocodile in every move had backup plans like this throughout their journey to stop him. He was 50 steps ahead of her with backup plans prepared with the intention to get her stuck. She overcame these obstacles even with these backup plans, never letting down at the most dire moments. This situation breaks Vivi the most though. Nothing is working for her, knowing that everyone might die. Crocodile wanted this to happen. He wants to see the princess just finally lose her will to fight. Vivi is ready to give up, but Pell comes to talk to her about his time serving her family. Back then, Pell found Vivi in a storage room after an explosion happened. Vivi tries to laugh it off saying she's fine, yet Pell slaps her, yelling to her that she's been told not to enter the storage room. Vivi's about to cry, but Pell only did it knowing that he couldn't live with himself, knowing if she got hurt under his watch. As an apology, Pell gives Vivi a ride through the sky with his devil fruit. Pell thanks Vivi for what her family has done for him, and uses his falcon powers to lift the bomb towards the sky. Vivi yells at him to stop, but all we hear is the bomb tick ascending the sky. The Falcon of Alabasta sacrifices his life to save everyone. Until it's shown that he's alive, but that's a video for another day. Ignoring that fact, Vivi expects the rebels and the soldiers of the kingdom to stop fighting, seeing the main threat is gone with the sacrifice of Pell. Yet all she hears after the explosion is a continuous fighting. Vivi at this moment loses her last bit of composure and just starts begging everyone to just stop, but the rages of war cover her cries for peace. It's a tearjerker seeing that her people are fighting a war that doesn't benefit anyone except the man who set up this coup d'etat. The crew can't do anything except watch Vivi beg and cry for all of this to stop. Vivi's desperation is a result of Crocodile's plan and how every step of her felt like nothing. Crocodile's plan was almost flawless. Even if Crocodile's bomb failed, he took account for every possible route that could have gone wrong with outside factors. The one thing he never considered was the cries of Alabasta. The tears, aka the rain, covers the cries of war but didn't cover Vivi's cries for peace. The Marines became a huge reason why Vivi's voice is able to be heard, with them bringing rain to Alabasta. Everyone stops fighting, and Vivi is able to explain everything. The rebels are skeptical of what Vivi says, but Koza steps up to back up Vivi. Koza, in many instances, has tried to turn a blind eye on what Vivi's father has done. Upon seeing Crocodile, Koza understood what he was doing was wrong. He decides he needs to make amends with Alabasta standing by Vivi's side. There's still some skepticism, but they see a body fly up in the air. That body is the man who started everything, reassuring everyone that the defeat of Crocodile confirms what Vivi says is true. Luffy never gave up, as long as Vivi didn't, and Luffy came at the point where Vivi needed it the most with Crocodile's defeat. It's a good end not only to Baroque works, but Vivi's worries. She can finally come back to Alabasta, ready to lead everyone towards a new future. After this, we get the moment where I became a One Piece fan, and why I decided to stick with it. It's why I love the series, and stop denying the fact that I didn't want to see it, yet I've already decided to see it through. The crew rest up from this long journey, and are prepared to leave ahead of time to prevent the Navy from capturing them. The Marines plan to ambush them, so the crew prepare to head to the Going Merry at night, but before that, they tell Vivi to join their crew. Vivi doesn't know what to say, knowing that she did enjoy her time traveling with the crew. They tell her she has until next morning to decide what she wants, and Vivi debates whether she should go with them or not. While she is thankful for what the crew did for Alabasta, she wants to stay in Alabasta to help her father with the kingdom. Ingram worries she will leave, but Vivi reassures him she won't leave. Vivi just can't get the feeling in her mind that this is what she wants to do. Luffy expects her to come, so he waits regardless, even with the Navy trying to capture them. Everyone thinks she isn't going to come until Vivi yells out for them. The crew are excited that Vivi came, but Vivi tells them this is goodbye. Vivi thanks the crew for everything, and she cries telling them even though this is goodbye, if they were to meet again, can they take her as a friend and a crew member? The crew don't say anything to this unfortunate news. The Straw Hats do just one thing. They all lift their hands together, showing the X mark they all made together during the arc, giving Vivi the answer that the Straw Hats will always be with her no matter what. And this moment is why I love One Piece. Alabasta as a saga is not about the crew saving a kingdom, but a saga of the crew starting their journeys in the Grand Line. Oda understood this and gave us a roster of characters and events that concatenated this word so well that it felt like an actual history taking place. I was so ready to drop this series after Syrup Village, but I powered through, and this moment is why I stuck with it. Resolve, closure, action, friendship, heartbreak, adventure, and freedom is the perfect description of not only this saga, but One Piece as a whole. If I can pick any moment of the story that describes One Piece perfectly in terms of storytelling, it's this saga right here. As a piece of work, this is as close as you can get to a perfect saga in any media involving how you present your story as a writer. Up until Alabasta, I was thinking, why should I stick with One Piece? And upon reaching the conclusion of the saga, I finally got my answer. It was moments like these with Vivi that presented me as a viewer that dropping it now would be a worse decision than not picking red with my life savings at a roulette wheel. Especially with us knowing that the final saga is settling everything. I was never bored at any section during the crew's adventure with Vivi. Vivi herself will always be a crew member in my mind, and nothing will change that because she deserves it the most out of any person that the Straw Hats have met. I highly encourage you to watch the series because of this saga, as this is my hooking point to see this through. I have never seen multiple arcs connect together fluidly and resolve with such a satisfying end ever. I wanted Vivi to join. I wanted Vivi to explore the Grand Line holds for everyone, yet I understood why she didn't. I wasn't sad that she didn't join the crew. I was sad that my favorite saga of all time is over. I finally realized why One Piece fans beg for people to start their journey. Now I'm telling you, who haven't seen it for some reason, please watch it at this point. Come back to the video once you're done so I don't ruin anything for you. Alabasta marked not only the beginning of this arc for the crew, but for me as a fan. So I say to you, begin your journey now, just how I did because of my favorite arc ever in One Piece. What are dreams? Dreams are thoughts that come up in our minds during sleep. Many things that seem impossible in life are real when we sleep. Imagination has no limits in this realm of REM sleep. We don't have an exact scientific answer why we as humans dream at night. Sigmund Freud's theory of dreams suggests that dreams represent unconscious desires, thoughts, wish fulfillment, and motivations. According to Freud, people are driven by repressed and unconscious longings, such as aggressive and sexual instincts. Dreams could have many interpretations to our real life events, as one of the most common dreams is being naked in public space, representing our fear of being judged by others. It's a dream I had a lot when I was younger, but over the years I've never had that dream again, which does say a lot about me now that I think about it, funny enough. Another dream I have a lot, even today, is my teeth falling out, representing stress in your life. Ignoring that though, this is not the dream I am referring to. The dreams I am referring to are, what are your dreams? What are your ambitions in life? When I was younger, my career choices changed over time. The earliest I can remember what I wanted to be was being in the military. I was naive because I used to want to be a badass soldier like Dempsey and BO1 due to my undying love for zombies. Oh boy, do I look back and laugh. I have respect for people putting themselves through hell and back training to protect our country as well as risking their life in war, but I am against the military themselves. I am very anti-war, as even with our thousands of years of being on this earth, war is a continuous cycle that humans seem to follow due to disagreement, corruption, or just stupidity our race goes through. Ironic since I'm talking about One Piece. Regardless, I have had different ambitions in my life, like being a fireman, police officer, video game designer, engineer, real estate agent, and finally surprise, video essay YouTuber. Fun fact, in middle school, I used to be big into game design, and one of my teachers noticed my passion for it, so we had a college practice course where they'll invite tutors from colleges to help. One day, one of the tutors invited her husband because her husband actually worked for the sound design of 2016 Doom. He did a lot of the weapons effects for the game, which I appreciated since I understand that game design takes talent and time. If I remember correctly, he had his daughter scream at the mic for either a weapon effect or a monster scream. I don't recall exactly what it was since it was back in middle school. Moving on, my career choice has been very mixed. Even with my messy choices in life, the people who I look up to, like Kanye West,
we had everything we needed, it all ran like clockwork. You could have shut your mouth, cooked, and made as much money as you ever needed. It was perfect. But no, you just had to blow it up. You and your pride and your ego. You just had to be the man. If you'd done your job, known your place, we'd all be fine right now.
Oda himself, and many more taught me dreams are only as crazy as you perceive them. If you know where I'm going with this, you know which moment I'm talking about. Speaking of my past, I want you to think about what you wanted to be. Depending on the circumstances in life, you probably were told you can be anything at school. When I was younger, they always pushed for us to dream big. In elementary school, they had posters, lessons, and specialized classes to push your creativity like art and music, etc. But once you got older, did your dreams change? For majority of you, yes, it probably has. And as we go in our adult lives, if you're an adult, we were looked at as crazy by people online or IRL when we want to say we want to do something ambitious in life, even though we were taught to dream big. I was taught when I was younger there are no limitations on what we can do. A lot of kids my age in elementary wanted to be astronauts or an Olympic athlete or even explore the depths of the sea. Yet if we do that now, people will call us crazy. People want to put us down for not following the norm, even though we as humans have achieved the impossible before. Usain Bolt is a living example of that. He first broke his first record in 2007 and has set a new precedent for future competitors. Every record that has been set before has been seen as impossible to break because we didn't think that we can do better even though we can. The way to beat the impossible is to be able to visualize it. We can never achieve perfection for the result we want, but we can improve towards a visualization of that result. The best example I can think of is Kanye West.
I miss the old Kanye, straight from the gold Kanye. Chop up the soul Kanye, set on his goals Kanye. I hate the new Kanye, the bad mood Kanye, the always rude Kanye, spaz in the news Kanye. I miss the sweet Kanye, chop up the beats Kanye. I gotta say, at that time I'd like to meet Kanye.
Kanye in his past has one of the best come-up backstories from any artist. He grew up with a single mom with little money to his name. He bought big designer clothes to feel like he owned something in life, considering he felt like he had to. His mom wanted to head to college to get a good degree and job, but supported... Fuck, that scared me. Holy fuck, that scared me. His mom wanted to head to college to get a good degree and job, but supported Kanye's career in music even if he dropped out. Kanye had a guaranteed career as a producer, already making music for Jay-Z, Nas, and Common. He wanted to pursue being a rapper the most, seeing as rap was his real passion, but labels were only willing to sign him as a producer. Kanye regardless kept going until one day he was signed by Rockefeller Records after being rejected by multiple labels, and even after being signed with them, they doubted his college dropout album would succeed, still seeing him as a producer. On the contrary, the album sold over 400,000 copies first week. Even after that, people still looked at Kanye as crazy and doubted his rap skills. Each album after his first one proved them wrong. He got lucky. His second album will flop. Late registration follows the quality of the college dropout. What is he thinking competing with 50 Cent? Outsells 50 Cent with Graduation. 808s and Heartbreak is just auto-tune trash. The album proceeds to inspire the next generation of rappers in the early 2010s. People will always put down your dreams, but it's your job to uplift it, even if the dreams is looked at as silly by others. Say what you want about Kanye, he's misogynistic, he's not right in the head, he says stuff out of line, a lot. You can't say he hasn't brought us influence to the culture with the most insane ideas ever. Look at his Yeezy brand. Kanye West is loved because of what his music offers, not on what he says. His albums are a demonstration of people who decide to not let others place labels on them just because they can't find their own. Society has put up so many boundaries, so many limitations on what's right and wrong, and it's almost impossible to get a pure thought out. It's like a little kid, a little boy, looking at colors, and no one told him what colors are good. Before someone tells you shouldn't like pink because that's for girls, or you instantly become a gay 2-year-old, why would anyone pick blue over pink? Pink is obviously the better color. Everyone's born confident, and everything's taken away from you. That's why Luffy's ideology and dreams are questioned in Jaya after Alabasta. The crew are told about a sky island by someone, and Luffy wants to go there. Nami suggests they head to Jaya so they can figure out a way to get to it properly, so the crew head to Jaya for clues. The crew quickly learn that Jaya is an island that openly lets pirates do what they want, which scares some of the crew members, especially Usopp and Chopper. Nami tells Zoro and Luffy to stay out of trouble as they need to get clues to get to the Sky Islands. We're shown the ruthlessness of the island with a man named Bellamy, the captain of the Bellamy pirates, kill a man for cheating in poker, as well as having a 55 million berry bounty towards his name, so Bellamy is feared even with an island full of pirate groups. Luffy, Zoro, and Nami enter a resort that is reserved for Bellamy, and they meet Bellamy's first in command named Big Knife. He tells Luffy to scram. Luffy asks Nami if he can punch him for being annoying. Big Knife laughs and drops money for Luffy to pick up, but Nami and Zoro take offense, so they leave. The trio eventually go to a bar where Bellamy is to rest up, so Luffy orders a cherry pie along with the man next to him doing the same. The man says, I love food. The man says, I love food. The man says, I love futa porn so much, I'm about to coop. And Luffy says, I love gay black porn so much, I'm about to coop. Okay, I'm fucking with y'all. The man actually says, this cherry pie is so good, I could die. With Luffy actually saying, this cherry pie is so bad I could die. Which ends up being Luffy's first conflict with somebody. They both have opposite reactions to the pie, foreshadowing something. In an interview, Oda explains Luffy doesn't like cherries, but this conflict ends up setting up another one, even when it's not usual conflict the story usually sets up. The two start to argue over this pie fiasco, and Nami tells Luffy to drop it. She doesn't want any fighting happening, so the man leaves with some cherry pies, and Bellamy enters the bar saying he's looking for Straw Hat Luffy. Bellamy says if Luffy is the one with the 30 million bounty, and Luffy tells him yes, so Bellamy orders a bottle of wine for himself and as well as anything Luffy wants. Bellamy's crew also joins him, and Luffy thanks Bellamy for a drink, but as soon as Luffy takes a swig, Bellamy drags Luffy's head towards the floor. Zoro holds his sword against Bellamy's neck for disrespecting his captain. Nami tells Zoro to just restrain himself, they still need information. Luffy gets up to prepare to fight, so Bellamy agrees to this duel. Nami, quick on her feet, yells out asking the bar owner if she knows how to get to Sky Island, which causes everyone to stop suddenly. The whole bar laughs at Nami, and she gets beat red explaining the log pose is pointed towards the sky. Bellamy joins in, explaining the Sky Island is just a myth, and that things falling from the sky are just the current shooting up the items towards the clouds. He continues saying that the mysteries of the Grand Line slowly get explained, and tells Luffy, all dreams can be explained. I can't believe this. I was gonna test you to see if I let you join my crew of the new era, but you're just a crazy dreamer. Bellamy continues by yelling out to the bar, the pirate dream era is over. The fools who go after the dream treasure cannot notice what's too bad right in front of them. In this era of the sea, the ones that do not have real strength are the ones killed by their own imaginations. In the end, this is how people will judge the idiots that died. Luffy just stares blankly, even as Bellamy mocks and hurts him. Luffy just stays dormant, seeming like he doesn't have any will to fight back. Nami tells the duo to just kick his ass to forget about the promise, but Luffy tells Zoro to just not fight regardless. Bellamy's crew continue to mock the duo for seeming to want to go to the Sky Island. The two aren't willing to fight back, so they proceed to give the duo the meanest beatdown in front of everyone in the bar. Nami checks on the two, and Big Knife offers to buy Nami, but she mocks Bellamy's crew, which ends up backfiring. The bar just laughs at her empty comment, leaving Nami embarrassed. Bellamy kicks them out, so Nami drags the duo outside, prepare to cry, but the man that Luffy argued with earlier about cherry pies asks Nami why she is crying, as the battle Zoro and Luffy endured were won by them. Nami is confused at this comment. The duo get back up as the man continues with arguably the best moment ever in One Piece.
空島はあるぜ。ここ
このチェリーパイはやっぱり最高だ。
あんたさっきの
何を悔しがるんだ姉ちゃん。今の戦いはそいつらの勝ちだぜ。
え？
ほう、俺たちを超えるか。次に会う時は海賊の高みだ。
おめえの単価も大したもんだったぞ。肝っ玉の座った女だ。ぜはははは。
ゾロ、ルフィ。
あいつらの言う新時代ってのはクソだ。海賊が夢を見る時代が終わるって？おい！
なんだ
人の夢は終わらねえ。そうだろう。
おいおいてめえ何急に叫び出すんだよ。人の夢がなんだって。
人をしのぐってのも楽じゃねえ。ぜははは
脳みそ溶けちまったのか。
なんだよ、外が騒がしいな。
ほっとけ。腹いせにあいつらが暴れてんじゃねえのか。
笑われていこうじゃねえか。高みを目指せば出す拳の見つからねえ喧嘩もあるもんだ。なあおい。ぜははは
行くぞ。
ええ。ルフィ？ルフィ？
おお、邪魔したみてえだな。先急ぐのか。行けるといいな、空島へよ。ぜはははは。
This speech about dreams is what differentiates what being a pirate actually is. It's ironic that the man who gave this speech ends up being the greediest of all pirates with the same dreams as the average pirate. A few years ago, Oda showed future versions of the Straw Hats with a good and bad routes. The good route, most of the crew looks amazing and are very good looking, retaining to the original statue of their peak, but in a bad route, most of the crew look like the average pirate with missing teeth along with bad weight being built up. They are unhygienic and the comments written by them seem more like reminiscence of stuff they wish they did. This depiction could be explanation why 90% of pirates look so fucking ugly. Like, Jesus, look at some of these bastards. But the remaining 10% are built large in a good way and stand tall, literally showing their ambitions for the world in a physical sense, like of their dreams manifesting to their build. It also could be why the man, aka Blackbeard, has succeeded so far into his journey, as the pirates that dream with selfish ambitions don't make it as far, but due to Blackbeard being an exception by his intelligence, as well as him obviously having some sort of bigger ambition, even with that ambition is the same as a selfish pirate, it doesn't really matter what your dream is as long as you truly believe in this dream. Blackbeard, the most pirate-like pirate, gives Luffy the biggest speech in the series, even with Blackbeard's ambition is one full of selfishness. It's a precedent to why some pirates succeed and why others fail, even with the ones who fail might have the same dreams as Luffy. The ones destined to fail are the ones who don't believe in their own dreams hard enough. The ones who succeed are the ones who believe their dreams through thick and thin, regardless of intention. This idea is further pushed near the end of the arc when Luffy gets his leg back against Bellamy. Luffy rushes back towards Jaya due to the gold statues that Cricket spent years collecting is required to reach the Sky Islands, and Luffy doesn't want Cricket's life work to go to waste as he trusts Luffy with his dream. Bellamy learns of Luffy's 100 million bounty, which is almost double of his, but he doesn't worry thinking the bounty is fake. Luffy calls out Bellamy to come out and face him to return the stolen gold. The battle starts and Bellamy asks if Luffy can even throw a punch, so Luffy does this.
そういや、あのジジイや大猿たちもおめえらと同類だな。400年前の先祖のホラを信じ続ける生粋のバカ一族だ。何が黄金鏡、何が空島だ。夢見る時代は終わったんだ。海賊の恥さらしども。
パンチの打ち方を知ってるかって。
やっちまえベラミー。そんなアホには現実を生きる資格もねえのさ。あばよ麦わら。
Just like that, Luffy gets his win against Bellamy. When we all first watched the start of this arc, I questioned like Nami, why didn't they fight? Oda made it intentional that Luffy is fine with what people do to him. It doesn't mean that he's a pushback though. If anyone messes with his friends, he will come after you. Cricket getting beat up for his gold angered Luffy because he didn't want to see his life work go to waste, especially with Cricket entrusting Luffy to clear his family's reputation. Seeing that punch just cave Bellamy was such a satisfying moment with that amount of eagerness Bellamy had. He thought he was a shit calling himself the rookie, yet the real underdog rookie showed him his place for even daring to try to hurt his friends. As the cherry on top at the end of Skypiea, Luffy's shadow reflects over the island, proving to all the doubtful pirates of Jaya that the Sky Islands existed. Cricket's family name is cleared with that one move. Jaya was a test towards Luffy's beliefs, but even if it seemed like he doubted his own dreams in the arc, the reality is, he never did. Dreams only truly die if the believer doubts his own.
Your life is nothing. You serve zero purpose. You should kill yourself now.
Skypiea is not looked fondly in the community, as people either unanimously agree this arc is very unrelated to story progression, or just feel like it's a canon filler arc. I never understood why people thought this. The arc offers a lot of starting ideas for future setups in the story. Even if you bring up the concept of Hockey or Gear 5 being hinted at, people still say this arc doesn't do much narratively. The crew just do what they do and just help a group of people in need of help from a main villain. If that's just the main argument people tend to have towards this arc, then it's a failed one, since every arc can be described like this. DressRosa and Alabasta can be described as a princess going undercover to take down the villain, and ask the Straw Hats to help take down the corruption being led behind the curtains. Don't get me wrong, this is a valid argument and is a criticism people tend to ignore when talking about One Piece, but this doesn't even apply to Skypiea. We don't get much callback to this arc in terms of story in future arcs sadly, but this arc does start to set up who Nico Robin is, as well as her adventure with the crew. Skypiea is one of those arcs where the crew get a small break from anything that is influenced by the world they know, and step into unknown territory where people on land will never step foot into. Robin's curiosity peaks the most from anyone in the crew this arc. She wants to research the ruins in the Sky Islands to see what lies there and solve how there's dirt in the sky. While we don't get her backstory until Enies' lobby, Robin is shown as a person who wants to learn about what the people of our past left behind. Usually Nami can be very knowledgeable when steering the crew in the right direction. Whenever she gets stuck, Robin is always there to fill in the gaps where Nami's knowledge lacks. It works well with Nami's navigation skills when sailing the seas. Robin is more well known of things people from outside the Grand Line wouldn't typically know, since you can guess Robin was born in the Grand Line. She learned the do's and don'ts of it much sooner than a lot of pirate groups outside of it. This is also very showing with Robin's love for reading. Throughout the next few arcs, or any arc really, she's always having a book in front of her. Even Luffy notices this in a filler episode where Robin offers Luffy a book to read while looking for a new island, which catches all of the crew off guard considering that Luffy is the same dude who is willing to eat raw meat with no hesitation. Continuing from that note, as we journey through Skypiea, Robin explores the physical islands, wondering why the islands that Enel resides have soil and physical construct. The other islands outside the area are just clouds and water, so it confuses her how Enel's area is the only part of Skypiea with actual physical construct from the land. This frustrates Robin as she finds these ruins valuable, so we see a first look into her compatibility with her devil fruit. Her devil fruit is very simple and delicate, but has an assassin type feel to it. She uses her fruit to snap people's body parts with ease due to the devil fruit requiring the person to be in vision presence of the user. She doesn't hold back against this fat fuck, and I don't blame her. Just looking at him makes me pissed off. He tried to ruin my wife's hobby and he got lucky that he basically got a slap on the wrist. After that quarrel, Robin has an opportunity to move deep into the islands and discover a city of gold. This city is completed top to bottom with gold. This city of gold is called Shandora, and it is inspiration to Nolan's book about the city of gold we learned about in Jaya. Shandora belonged to the Shandia tribe and they've been fighting Enel for their land back. It was unjustly taken from their ancestors throughout the years, so the tribe has been fighting non-stop for their land back. We also learned that the knockup stream took half of Jaya Island to the skies, and that's why the Shandia tribe ended up in Skypiea. Robin discovers discovering the city first is more fitting for her. Robin's watchfulness to understand why the city of gold is important makes her such an intriguing character. She's the only crew member who can admire this moment of awe. She doesn't see a city made of gold, more like a city that stood the test of time because of the way it found a fortunate situation leading to its preservation from outside interference. We see a city shine that no other place could, with the context that they did the impossible by making a city literally made to shine to any outside foreseers who seemingly passed by. This moment is a prerequisite of her story because of the fact that there's a reason to care for the history of the Shandia tribe. Robin's character in a whole is to understand the people before them. This one moment is the biggest hint towards Robin's past, so when we look back at it, we get why Robin has this lure with the city beyond that it's made of gold. She wants to put herself in a Shandian's shoes, walking towards the city with the intention to see what they left behind. I said earlier Skypiea is a start to Robin's character. That is half true, because Skypiea is more about history along with the consequences of colonization. There's a YouTube video by the One Piece creator named Melontree. She goes through why there's more to Skypiea than 3 groups fighting for an island. I highly recommend you watch that video, after this one of course, since she covers the effects of colonization and why the Shandorians care about the islands a lot. Think about it like this, why aren't we taught much of Native American history besides from what they hunted buffalo or lost majority of land to colonizers during that time? The easy answer is because it's a cruel history that's filled with bloodshed. It's something obvious, yet we don't think about it too much when learning about the important fact about manifest destiny. In terms of the US, that is. This could be applied to many other countries, but the most well-known example of colonization is with the US. Majority of land that Native American tribes had were taken by force with weapons and threats. In the 19th century, Mexico paid people to remove the scalps of tribes no matter age or gender of the person. Some of these scalpers noticed that the government couldn't tell the difference between scalp of a Native American and a Mexican. So scalpers would scalp Mexicans as well because they knew they can get away with it. This didn't just happen in Mexico. The US also did this when trying to get rid of Native Americans as they colonized their territories. They would go to the extreme and pay more for the head if it's decapitated. A lot of people who tend to ignore this fact always argue, well, the Native Americans were already doing this to each other, so why does it matter? This is most likely the case, but that doesn't excuse the US and many other countries what they did regardless. Even if Native Americans were killing other tribes, the US did it at a massive scale for their own benefit. They were an outside factor that did the most damage from any party. That's why we can't really ignore this fact. While it is cruel, this is a structure for many colonization events. This is something I was never taught about in school, and the only reason why I know this is from a book called Blood Meridian, which goes over real life events into its plot with the main character scalping Mexicans and Native Americans for money. Skypiea follows the themes of learning the mistakes from the past of bloodshed, as well as inheriting will with the future generation. That's why Skypiea is such a fitting arc for Robin's character. She's the one who discovered Goldie Rogers' signature in the language of poneglyph on gold. Robin also ends up discovering another poneglyph that the Shandia tribe are fighting for right now to protect, even if they don't know it themselves. Nolan's backstory is probably the most tragic with this revelation of events. He is the parallel of Roger, like Luffy. Roger's legacy lived on as his execution led to an age of piracy, but here's the thing, Roger was lying about the One Piece. He was asked about where he hid his treasure and answered. He said that they had to search the whole world for it. People presume that the One Piece is Roger's treasure he collected throughout his journey. This is backed up in chapter 1 with him saying, "Want my ultimate treasure." As we journey through the series, the people who are closest to discovering the One Piece know that the One Piece isn't Roger's treasure, but instead something so much bigger that it made Roger's crew laugh. Roger only said to search the world to find the treasure he left at that place, except he never mentioned the last island during his execution. All he stated was, "I gathered everything in this world and already hidden them in that place." People just presume that the One Piece is at the last island, but along with that, the One Piece is not Roger's treasure since the One Piece has been hinted to have existed way before Roger's life. People just thought that place must be where the One Piece is because no other group in that time has set foot at the last island except Roger's crew. Roger only reached the last island to claim himself as the greatest pirate ever. Wiper pointed out that his dream is silly due to him being the only contender for that role. Yet once he did reach that island, he respected him because he always thought Roger could reach that goal. The race for the One Piece only existed for 20 years after his execution. That's it. The main reason why Roger gave up his life was to trick the world into continuing his legacy and start a new age of piracy. Roger knew that at least one person would discover the true nature of the One Piece that was there that made him laugh upon reaching the last island. To not confuse you, this is what I think Roger planned after he reached the last island. Give himself up, reveal what he did with his treasure, and give a vague description of where the location of his treasure is. What I'm trying to say is, Roger wanted someone to reach the last island by placing what may or may not be a fake treasure set by him so that someone sees what's truly there. If he told the world what was truly there at the last island, then no one would go, understanding that some people wouldn't value the journey to go there. So he made his last words abstract to incentivize the race he set in motion. It's the reason why Oda has been very secretive of Roger's life, because of the fact that there's something more lying beyond an ultimate treasure. Roger essentially told a white lie for the course of of events to take place, and he died with a smile free of regret, knowing that someone was going to complete his goal, unlike Nolan. Nolan discovered the Shandia tribe seeing the City of Gold exist, so after building a good relationship with the tribe, he reported this to the king of the village about his findings. They go to Jaya to see the city, but it's gone. The king decides to execute Nolan for lying, and Nolan's last word is saying that the city sank. They search for it, yet nothing shows up, so Nolan's forever known as a liar. Nolan went out as a liar with a frown on his face, which is the opposite how Roger goes out. While Roger was able to continue his legacy with a lie, Nolan's legacy ended with the truth. Nolan's will died when he died, as no one was willing to believe that a city of gold truly existed, but Cricket was willing to give that a chance. The one thing that this arc teaches is that we never know what actually went down in history. The history of Jaya and Skypiea is why Robin is willing to go so far to search the truth of this island, since there's more than meets the eye of what we know from the information we are given. The Library of Alexandria is the perfect example, as the burning of the library cost us decades of information about Greece and their culture. On top of that, the good of Skypiea is when Luffy Shadows covers the entirety of Jaya. This one act proves that Nolan was correct about the City of Gold, and this also helps Bellamy find another purpose into his piracy career, as in DressRosa, he thanked Luffy for giving him more purpose, since after seeing the shadow, he decides to visit the Sky Islands. Nolan's will never truly died as long as someone believed in it. The symbolism of the Shandia tribe reflects a lot of real life events that give One Piece that realism on something that could happen in terms of conflicts and events. Dreams, wills, and colonization is what makes Jaya and Skypiea more than just arcs. It makes them history unfold in our eyes, and Robin knew that the whole time during her discoveries of Skypiea. The will of a person will carry on even with one person believing in it. The lies of a great figure can be seen as the truth. The truth of an ordinary person can be seen as a lie. Skypiea is an arc about discovering truth and believing the wills placed upon our ancestors. It ties back to Jaya about no dream being over the top, because a Sky Island having more realistic themes of history while containing a city of gold is the best way to convey why there's more to something than three groups fighting for a piece of land.
A guy knew that was you. Hong Sang-yong. Hong Sang-yong, Squid Game. From the Squid Game. Using the Squid Game. Hong Sang-yong. From the Squid Game.
In the defense of Long Ring Long Island is actually a fun arc to watch. The arc is a bit longer in the anime since originally the games were 2, but the anime stretched it to 3, I believe. Regardless, this arc actually does something even if narratively it does nothing. It gives us the greatest Luffy transformation. Afro Luffy. JK. But I do love this costume though. We needed to come back for sure in a future arc. This arc we see interactions that Robin has with the crew, as this arc is right before the Water 7 incident. One thing that was pointed out is when Sanji gets cotton candy for Nami. Nami is in the best mood because of Luffy's shenanigans. In the next panel though, we see Robin with cotton candy and gives it to Chopper. She's already very fond of Chopper's cuteness, seeing him as a son. Now, any normal person would think that Robin got her own cotton candy. I'm not a normal person though. A lot of people, including me, presume that Sanji gave his cotton candy to Robin. It's something he would do, and Robin accepted it because she doesn't want to be mean to Sanji. So she takes a bite, but she isn't very fond of sweets, so she just gives it to Chopper since Chopper loves sweets. Now, I may be reading too much into it with this small detail, yet I think this small moment is Oda showing us that Robin has already built a friendship with the Straw Hats, as later in the arc, she doesn't worry when the crew lose her to Foxy during the competition. Again, this arc might not do much. It does a good job showing us how the Straw Hats act with each other when they aren't taking down a dictator to save a country. If you don't like this arc, I understand, because it does nothing to the plot unlike Skypiea, but I hope we see another one of these pirate competitions between the Straw Hats and Shanks' crew, since this would be a cool callback. I really like this arc because it's just fun. It's moments like these that we just don't get anymore in post-time skip. If the theories of Shanks and Luffy facing each other in a Davy Back fight end up true, it'll give more of a goofy nature that post-time skip needs for its progression with Gear 5 in terms of storytelling. With Bartolomeo basically disrespecting the Shanks group, I wouldn't be surprised if Shanks challenges Luffy for what the Straw Hats Grand Fleet did. Also, the Zoro and Sanji team up was cool as well. Just want to throw that in there.
Having fun with off limits in Mister's house.
Nigga, did I just catch you having fun?
Sweet Jesus! Lord have mercy! My baby!
Water 7 and Enies Lobby are the biggest tearjerkers of this series. This saga is the only moment in One Piece where I actually cried a lot. So before I spoil the moments, do me one thing and watch One Piece now. This is your final warning, considering this arc is where we see the Straw Hats bond being tested. Alright, let's start. So the Straw Hats need some funds to fix a going merry, since if you haven't been paying attention, they tend to treat the boat very roughly like the average lesbian domestic relationship. Before this happened though, the Straw Hats meet a Marine Admiral named Aokiji. Immediately Robin is concerned, returned. Aokiji states the Straw Hats are a dangerous group because of Robin's curse of destroying any group she's in. Luffy doesn't care for that and refuses to leave Robin, but Robin panics and attacks Aokiji. He soon starts retaliating back. Aokiji ends up freezing Robin alive. He is ready to shatter Robin's frozen body until the crew manage to save her by quickly snatching her so they can begin to unfreeze her. Luffy takes on Aokiji, but loses very easily, showing the power dominance Aokiji has on everyone. Aokiji decides to let Luffy go, warning him that Robin will be a danger to his group. This event is Robin's first warning towards the arc to leave the crew. Oda saying to us that she is a bad omen for the Straw Hats. Robin starts to understand that her misfortune in life are starting to catch up to her. Now the second warning is what makes Robin basically betray the crew, and it's when her and Chopper decide to explore the city. When they stop by a bookstore, a mysterious figure walks by her saying CP9. Okay, CP9 is crazy. Like, I never realized that. CP9. COD points 9. That's what it is, bro. That's it. Okay, COD points 9. We're sticking with that. This moment basically is a wake-up call to her, saying that her time is up. Robin stands there with fear in her eyes and decides to disappear, leaving Chopper alone. As that's going on, Nami, Usopp, and Luffy go to use the money from Skypiea to fix the ship. They head to a ship repair company and meet a man named Kaku. Kaku goes to check out the ship, and Sanji sees Robin walking by herself but disappears very quickly. The trio meet the iceberg crew who run Water 7 and get to know a bit of the history of the city. They wait in the meantime for Kaku to report the damage from the Going Merry. Kaku returns evaluating the damage and drops the bomb that the Going Merry is unfixable. The keel of the ship is too damaged, since the keel is basically the lifeline of the ship, being the first part to be used to put the ship together. Luffy doesn't believe them, but Iceberg tells him to think about finding another ship since the Going Merry doesn't have long. This unfortunate news becomes a spiraling point for the crew, creating conflict for the group dynamic. It's the snowball effect for why the crew starts to crumble in this arc. It's not the point where the crew actually doubts whether to keep going though. It is something that is brought up later that leads to an argument between Usopp and Luffy. Nami notices the money missing and goes to look for it desperately, but finds Usopp on the ground beat up, sobbing to Nami that he's sorry he couldn't keep the money safe. Nami decides to go back to the crew to report what happened. Usopp decides to face Frankie's crew alone, feeling responsible for losing the money entrusted to him. Frankie's crew mock him for daring to face up to him, and they beat him to a pulp, leaving him outside. The crew eventually find Usopp and decide to just obliterate the Frankie group for beating down a member of their crew. Frankie himself is nowhere to be seen when this goes down by coincidence. Such a cool moment regardless. We think to ourselves during this point that things are gonna go up, since it seems that the crew is still very strong. Oda decides to give us a curveball though after this moment, leading to the most intense crew moment. Usopp learns that the Going Merry can go on, but just can't bring himself to think of leaving the ship. Luffy says he wouldn't take another option if the ship was fixable. He has to leave the Going Merry if he wants to continue his journey to become the king of pirates. Usopp is irritated that they are willing to leave a Straw Hat member. The two start scuffling due to this unfortunate scenario, and it's a bit unsettling because we've never seen the crew members actually start arguing like this. It's so odd since it doesn't feel real seeing this big of an issue getting to the crew, yet it's affecting the relationship that everyone has with Usopp's one-sided disagreement with everyone. Usopp has enough of this bickering and says he quits because he's going to just lag behind the group in terms of usefulness. But before he leaves, he challenges Luffy to a fight for the rights of the ship. Luffy accepts this challenge and the two fight for the Going Merry. At first, Usopp doesn't do so bad since he basically knows what Luffy's movesets are, which is a reflection on how good the two know each other. But things quickly turn around because all the damage that Usopp does isn't significant. Usopp very much knows he is going to lose. He still decides he has to go all out and play dirty using what he knows about Luffy's moveset. We're shown a panel of the Going Merry basically crying, seeing the crewmates she traveled with potentially ending their journey right here. Luffy has enough and ends the fight with one punch, leaving him the winner of the fight. He gives the Going Merry to Usopp, saying he will just continue his journey without him. Chopper tries to help Usopp, but Sanji says not to pity the man who just humiliated himself twice. The crew clears up their stuff and leave Usopp with the Going Merry. Luffy realizes in this moment what a captain has to do for their goals. He lost 2 members along with another one he hasn't realized is gone. Just as you think things can't get worse, the Straw Hats are framed for a failed assassination attempt on Iceberg. Iceberg reports to the news of Water 7 that Nico Robin was the one trying to kill him, and a giant tsunami is going to cover the entire island. So this arc is basically a test on Luffy's leadership, considering all these events are unfolding at the same time. This is especially true since Luffy goes to Iceberg to confirm everything and tries to fix the situation. Iceberg wants the crew arrested, seeing as Robin is their responsibility. As the crew are separated trying to figure out what to do, Robin confronts Sanji and Chopper, saying she won't return to the crew. Robin tells the crew she indeed tried to kill Iceberg and plans to leave the incident towards the group as a scapegoat, basically betraying them. The two chase her, but she quickly disappears in the darkness, accepting her. Sanji tells Chopper to report what just happened to the crew, word for word of his view. Chopper tells the crew of what transpired, and they figure out that Robin will try to assassinate Iceberg again. They must go tonight and capture Robin back and stop her. During the night of this assassination, all of the major groups of this arc basically go to the Iceberg mansion to see what's happening. Robin confronts Iceberg, and we learn Robin's bounty has been set on her since she was 8 due to her knowledge of the ancient weapon that could destroy the world. The weapon is called Pluton, and Iceberg holds the schematics for it. At this moment, Iceberg's crew reveal themselves the true assassins of the incident and CP9, saying to give them the schematics of Pluton. Lucci is revealed the leader of the group, and we see firsthand of his intelligence, deciphering that the schematics of Pluton isn't with Iceberg with the team's investigation. They uncover that the schematics have a signature of Tom's workers, and the 2 signatures besides Iceberg is Tom and Cathy Fram. Tom was supposedly a shipwright of the island, but there's no record of it, as well as Cathy Fram's death 8 years ago must have been faked since the same man confirmed his name in front of the group during their time with Iceberg. CP9 figured out that Cathy Fram is Frankie because of Iceberg's veins pulsing, even if they doubted before that Frankie could be Cathy Fram. As CP9 thanks Iceberg for the time during the company, Luffy busts into the room along with the crew. Robin tells the crew she's done with them. She needs to accomplish her goals without them. The crew fights CP9 to catch Robin, but the crew lose pretty hard to the group, and Robin leaves the Straw Hats to die. CP9 tells the crew that they've been training for years to master abilities beyond human limits. Lucci launches Zoro and Luffy pretty far around the island, as well as knocking out the remaining group as a power stance to the group, saying what they do won't change anything. In the meantime, Usopp confronts Frankie for stealing their ship, and Frankie tells Usopp that the Going Merry is done for. He destroys parts of the ship, claiming it's no longer able to set sail. Usopp at this point knows the truth, but can't let go of the fact that the ship the crew was given by Kaya will collapse. He tells Frankie on Skypiea that he saw a ghost fix the ship when it was badly damaged. Frankie says that he saw Clabaterman, a legend of ships incarnating as small people, warning other people of the ship's condition. He continued saying to Usopp that if the ship took on a physical appearance, then it appreciated the crew for its love till the end. A heartwarming moment for Usopp, realizing the ship is alive, until CP9 confronts Frankie about the Pluton schematics. As CP9 takes Frankie and Robin, Iceberg wakes up along with Nami, saying that he needs to talk to her. Iceberg reveals during his confrontation of Robin, he asked if Robin's mood changed. He thought Robin was hiding something, along with Robin's desire to learn of the Poneglyph's history. He tells Nami that Robin wants the Straw Hats to be safe, even if it meant the government gets their hands on Pluton. Iceberg states, of all things, she chose U6 over the lives of all people of the world. Nami collapses with relief, learning Robin didn't betray the group, but quickly tries to rush to get the crew together to save Robin. They only have 30 minutes to catch because of the tsunami about to hit Water 7. My goat was 20 steps ahead finding the train, where they are transporting Robin along with Usopp and Frankie. Nami and Chopper scramble to look for the stuck duo since it's a race for time at this point. As Sanji makes his way through the train taking out fodder, Nami finds Zoro and Luffy stuck between the crevices of a building. Nami gets frustrated, yelling at Luffy that Robin's on her way to get executed for their protection and to stop messing around in a time like this. This revelation motivates the stuck duo to escape and avoid the giant tsunami in time. Sanji finds Frankie and Usopp tied in one of the train compartments, as well as a transponder Snell to contact the crew back in the island, while the crew take a sea train towards them. Sanji gets into contact and it's updated about the Robin situation. Luffy gives the green light for Sanji to handle things in his end by himself. As Frankie and Sanji mow through the train, Usopp manages to sneak towards Robin, or I mean Soj King manages to sneak towards Robin, saying they are here to rescue her. Robin yells at Soj King, "Why are you doing this? Didn't I clearly tell you that I quit the group? Don't make me tell you twice. I'm not one of you anymore." Soj King says, "Do you actually believe they will be willing to sacrifice their friend in order to survive, now that they know why you quit the group? They'll find and chop up your enemies no matter where they hide." Robin yells at him, "You don't understand what you're saying. I've never wanted for you guys to save me. I won't let you have it your way." But someone checks on her. She hides Soj King under her robe in time. Should have been me! Sanji and Frankie finally face CP9. Lucci tells them that Robin is a demon ready to awaken and that she needs to be killed for the sake of the world. Sanji attacks Lucci saying he doesn't care, but Robin enters the room with a dead expression. Sanji tells Frankie to cut the third card of the train along with Soj King grabbing Robin with an active smoke bomb covering the room. The plan is successful, but Blueno manages to catch the cart before it gets too far. Frankie sacrifices himself saying to get Robin out of there. Robin still insists they leave her be. Sanji tells Robin he understands her situation and they are prepared to save her no matter what, but Blueno shows up behind them, knocking Sanji out. Blueno grabs Robin, prepared to leave using his devil fruit. Soj King tells Robin it's okay. You'll be okay, so you have to have more faith in Luffy, which reaches Robin when she needs it. Bruno kicks Wholecake, saying he won't break her promise, regardless, as in the past she was involved in a government attack named Buster Call that left only Robin the only survivor. He continues saying because of Buster Call, she is an irredeemable devil due to her betraying her comrades because of her past trauma. This marks the end for the arc, and you might be wondering why I haven't covered the good in this arc. That's because there isn't one for Water 7 specifically. I'm not saying the arc is bad at all, far from it. The arc is very much a setup for Enies lobby for Robin as a character, and this is the first arc where the crew struggles together for once, knowing that the group potentially faces a breakup. I'm glad Oda gave the crew this challenge because really, in the past, we never seen the crew face an ultimatum together that tested their bond. It seemed that the crew was just perfect without issues, but this really brings the humanity of the group into light. The going Mary not being able to continue was unsettling for the crew. They needed to make a hard choice to leave her, leading to the crew eventually being at a standstill, regardless if it was just one person. But Robin being executed was a wake-up call for them to stop arguing. They knew that they had to save their friend. Stuff like this tends to happen to us eventually in our lives as we grow up as humans, either for the better or the worst. Whenever I have issues in my life, either being stressed by work or personal problems that involve someone, I keep it to myself because I don't want my friends or my mom worrying about me. But sometimes reaching out for help once or even twice never hurts because there's only so much we can do as one individual. Robin is the epitome of this mentality. Beginning till now, until this moment, Robin has been alone even in her childhood. Her mother left her with a family member but kept away from Robin since she ate a devil fruit by that time, so the kids her age would be afraid of getting near her. A giant named Jaguar de Sol was the only friend Robin made, teaching Robin to laugh even at the most desperate of times. He washed up in Ohara and met Robin, building a connection with her. Eventually Robin's mother returns after many years, so Robin tries to confront her but they keep missing each other. The government comes to Ohara to investigate the island. They are suspicious that the research groups of the island are trying to discover the void century written on the poneglyphs. They capture the research group to take them away, declaring they will call a Buster Call for hiding a poneglyph from them. Before that happens, Robin calls out for her mom. Robin's mom tells the government the child isn't hers to protect Robin from being executed. But she breaks though, knowing a mother can't ignore their crying child. The two embrace each other for the first time ever. The moment is cut short with Ohara being blown up, so Robin's mother, Olivia, tells Saul to get Robin away. Robin doesn't want to leave, with only barely getting an interaction with her. Olivia tells her to live for the sake of Ohara, so Saul takes Robin to safety to get her away from the island. Saul does his best to protect Robin, even betraying the Navy, considering he used to be a vice admiral until Aokiji stops them. Saul asks Aokiji how can he support a corrupt system, but initially Aokiji doesn't care for what he says, until the Navy blows up an evacuation ship that contained innocent people, afraid that an Ohara researcher snuck in. The three are horrified at what just happened. Even with that, Aokiji tried to shake off what just happened. He manages to immobilize Saul frozen. Before Saul is completely frozen, he tells Robin, "Listen up, Robin. Even though you're alone someday, surely you're gonna meet your nakama. The sea is vast. Someday surely your nakama will appear to protect you. Once you're born into this world, you're never gonna be alone." Saul is frozen solid, and Robin runs towards the edge of the island with Aokiji waiting for her. He tells Robin that he will let her live to see how the seed that Saul planted will live on. It's her decision whether to hold a grudge or not, but one day he'll catch Robin. Robin asks Aokiji to save her mom. He tells her everyone in Ohara will die no matter what. As Robin rows away from the island, she repeats "Derishishi, derishishi, derishishi," continuing her path of loneliness. Robin after this point has used any and every person as well as multiple crews to get what she wants. She did this to reach her goals, but it seems like she walked around the world without purpose, with her being wanted in every corner of the world by the government. She couldn't call anyone a friend or family, worrying she would be betrayed. She was being used for her abilities like Crocodile did during Alabasta, but the Straw Hats never did this. The crew, even though hesitant, accepted her with open arms regardless of her past. The crew are just good people by nature. Luffy can tell Robin herself isn't a bad person by nature. That's why Robin was willing to give up her life for the crew, since they never asked for anything back and treated her like the family she never had. She felt like for her to at least die with a sense of purpose, the crew needed to live. She could feel at least she accomplished something in her years of loneliness, making her adamant to lay her life for the crew. To her surprise though, the crew does this.
4つの海とグランドラインにある170カ国以上の加盟国の結束を示すもの、これが世界だ。立てつくにはお前らがどれほどちっぽけな存在だか分かったか。この女がどれほど巨大な組織に追われてきたか分かったか。
ロビンの敵はよく分かった。ソゲキング、あの旗撃ち抜け。
了解。新兵器巨大パチンコ、ナオカブト、その威力とくと見よう。必殺ファイヤーバードスター。 がりやがった。あいつら旗への攻撃の意味が分かってんのか。海賊たちが世界政府に宣戦布告しやがった。正気が貴様ら全世界を敵に回して生きられると思うなよ。
望むところだ。
ギャ
ー！ロビン！まだお前の口から聞いてねえ。行きたいと。イエーイ！ロビン。ロビン、生きる。
お前はこの世に生きてちゃいけねえんだ、ロビン。貴様の存在そのものが大罪なんだ、ロ
ビン。望んではいけないことだと思ってた。誰もそれを許してくれなかった。
私は死にたいのよ。
海は広いんだで。必ずお前を守ってくれる仲間が現れる。ルフィを信じろ。
もし本当に少しだけ望みを言っていいのなら、私は
生きたい。私も一緒に海へ連れてって。
The good of this arc is Robin regaining her will to live, and continuing not only for the sake of Saul or her mother, but for herself. She finally finds her purpose, and that being a Straw Hat member. She finds her a reason to live. It's why the crew didn't care to start a war against the government. Their bond, even if short, was enough to potentially give up their journeys to rescue her. Robin has desperately wanted to just die. She gave up that hope in finding her nakama way before the crew. Whether she lost Saul and Olivia, or when she teamed up with Crocodile is up for debate. It doesn't really matter, because again, she gave up on finding her nakama that Saul wanted for her. Aokiji checking up on Robin at the end of the arc sort of reminds me of a guardian in the background, wanting to see what their child grew up as. Letting Robin go during Ohara was the biggest gamble he could have taken. I think genuinely, Aokiji had doubts about the Navy before Ohara, yet he wanted to see if Robin would truly use her knowledge of being able to read the poneglyph to bring upon a destruction that the government fears. Aokiji wanted confirmation whether or not the fears of the government will come to fruition. He still wanted Robin to be at her edge by warning her that he's still going to come after her, so she doesn't think she's getting off scot-free. Now, this is the thing that confuses me. Why didn't Aokiji just arrest Robin in the beginning of Water 7? Oh, because of Luffy's actions in Alabasta. Here's the issue. Robin was directly responsible for what happened in Alabasta by being associated with Crocodile. Remember that. The Marines know this with the interaction between Tashigi and Robin, so it makes sense that the government would still hunt Robin, finding out about this fiasco. Aokiji just wanted to let Luffy's crew go, so why didn't he just take Robin instead? Knowing if they did get her out of harm's way, he could have just frozen everybody and just take her. So why didn't he? He had hope. The crew were fighting to keep her safe with the threats of their own lives at stake, but they were fighting for her to stay, even not knowing of her bad records in the beginning of the arc. Aokiji found some genuine hope of what Saul wanted for Robin, so he let her go at that moment to see if these people would be her nakama going forward. At the end of this arc, the seed that Saul sprouted finally bloomed, and Aokiji can let the guilt he burdened during Ohara be let go, even if only one survivor was the outcome. I think the events that Robin faced in Water 7 and Enies lobby was a main factor to Aokiji becoming a pirate. Instead of taking the liberator type of route like Robin did with the Straw Hats, he ended up giving up his ideologies to go to the worst group of the sea. It's sort of a reflection of what Robin could have been if the Straw Hats never came into her life. She had the knowledge to uncover the ancient weapons if she wanted to by dedicating her life to finding them, but she didn't. Robin has always been a good person at heart, with the sacrifice of Saul and Olivia along with Aokiji giving her a chance because of the people who believed in her. The warm-hearted nature that Aokiji had was indirectly passed to Robin, knowing that he couldn't trust her with that nature if he ever strayed away from it. I hope when the Straw Hats face the Blackbeard pirates, we see Robin try to save Aokiji from this path of self-destruction like he did back then with her. After this whole fiasco of saving Robin, the crew is pinned down by a Buster Call called in on them, and the crew is saved by the Going Merry calling out to them. The crew escape knowing they saved a crew member, but have to lose one more. Of course, I'm referring to the Going Merry dying officially, the only moment in One Piece where I cried. A fitting wrap for a beloved ship and crew member.
海底は暗くて寂しいからな。俺たちが見届ける。ウソップはいなくてよかったかもな。あいつがこんなの耐えられるわけがねえ。
どう思う？
そんなことないさ。決別の時は来る。男の別れだ。涙の一つもあってはいけない。彼にも覚悟はできてる。
長い間俺たちを乗せてくれてありがとうメリーゴ。
海賊にはなってやる。約束だ。海軍と一戦やるからには俺も晴れて悪党ってわけだ。だがな、一つだけ言っておく。俺は自分の野望だけは貫くぞ。
野望？
世界一の剣豪になることだ。俺が野望を断念するような羽目になったら、その時は腹を切って俺に詫びろ。
世界一の剣豪。いいね。海賊王の仲間ならそれくらいなってもらわないと困る。
We all know what moment I'm going to talk about. It's the one moment in One Piece where Zoro fans use to shit on Sanji because they love comparing the two. Ignoring that fact, Zoro was willing to give up everything for Luffy. Being the first member of his crew, Zoro and Luffy had a special dynamic in the crew that only could be matched by Zoro and Sanji's dynamic. Luffy saved Zoro from his execution, which led Zoro to face Mihawk, declaring that day he will become the greatest swordsman for the King of Pirates. We get so many highlights of Zoro being the main character that people want Zoro to be the main character himself, which is understandable because Zoro's journey as well as Sanji's are both what made up Luffy's goals. Sanji represents Luffy's childish side, while Zoro represents the realism of Luffy's side, which makes up the two part of the main trio. With that, the duo are presented with a life or death situation that will test their loyalty to the group. After the crew manages to set Moria's curse free from the prisoners of Thriller Bark, they don't even get an opportunity to rest. Kuma arrives, stating he's here to capture Luffy under the government's order. Kuma faces Zoro first, seeing as the government deems Zoro as Luffy's right-hand man. Zoro is struggling to keep up with Kuma's attacks. None of his attacks manages to go through, so Sanji decides to step in. Zoro yells at Sanji saying he doesn't need help, but is shocked that Sanji managed to strain his leg. Say what you will about who's the more powerful character, and who's the better crew member. I enjoy both of these characters. One more than the other though, I love both of these characters regardless. One thing you can say is Zoro doesn't have respect for Sanji. Seeing Sanji hurt like this, considering the two are even in power, says that this situation is nothing to squabble about, since this scenario requires the two to work together. Zoro, upon seeing Sanji hurt his leg, realizes they might lose here. That's why Zoro is caught off guard seeing Sanji hurt, cause we never see this type of scenario happen again. You might say, oh, you're overthinking it, but am I really? Oda tends to add these type of details for a reason. The fact that Zoro was shocked seeing Sanji get his leg hurt, the main body part where Sanji's durability should be the strongest, get denied without any effort, shows that Zoro is actually worried what could happen next. Zoro could always let Sanji take care of the crew when he isn't around, and vice versa, yet seeing Sanji like this, in some part, shook Zoro. This idea is even more reinforced with Zoro being desperate to get just one attack that could work, but Kuma doesn't get affected at all. Zoro decides to just resort to one last option by offering himself. Seeing Zoro get on his knees and begging. Let me repeat, begging. Since Zoro has the mentality of having scars on his back as a sign of weakness, so begging should obviously be another thing Zoro looks down upon. He puts his pride away, willing to let Luffy live, knowing that he will not achieve what he promised to Kuina. This moment represents Zoro's dedicated loyalty to not only the Straw Hats, but Luffy himself. He knows that the Straw Hats will disband with their captain gone, but what happens next with Sanji is what I wish people talked about more. Sanji overhears everything and disrupts Zoro saying, "What are you going to do if you die? What happened to your dream? Tell everyone to take care and you find yourself another chef." Zoro knocks out Sanji at this point, and I just want to say, Sanji has the most respect for Zoro than probably even Luffy does. Let me remind you, back in Baratie, seeing Zoro cry after the Mihawk duel is what made Sanji regain his desire to find the All Blue, since at first he thought, why is Zoro sacrificing his life fighting a losing battle? Then Zeff made him realize that people would chase their ambitions no matter if the road is filled with misery, because that's their only purpose in life at times. In a logical standpoint, Sanji being sacrificed was a smart option. Replacing a chef would have been easy. Replacing a talented swordsman was impossible. That's why Sanji was willing to go so easily, because he respects Zoro's dreams. He knows Zoro has what it takes to become number one. Sanji knew this was the right course of action. They can survive without a chef, but Zoro couldn't accept that, so he knocks out Sanji so he can take Luffy's place. Sanji always put the crew before himself, protecting Nami and Usopp in Skypiea, tracking the train that was taking Robin to Enies lobby, and activating the gates that let the crew escape the Buster Call. It was Zoro's turn to protect everyone. Kuma decides to manifest Luffy's physical pain from his fight with Moria and tells Zoro if he can survive this, then he'll let them go. Zoro gets a small taste of the pain, nearly knocking him out. Zoro tells Kuma to do this somewhere else so no one can see them. Once they find a spot, Zoro decides to jump into Ora with no hesitation, proving his loyalty to Kuma, giving us the good of this arc. With a moment of silence remaining after the events of Zoro's decision, Sanji soon wakes up looking for Zoro just to see him standing with blood all over his body, asking what happened. Zoro tells him, nothing. Nothing at all. Truly nothing happened here.
何もかも無事なわけねえ。あの野郎はどこだ。いた。脅かしやがって。おい、あの七部会どこに。なんだこの血の量は。おい生きてんのか。あいつはどこだ。ここで何があった。何もなかった。
There's one more good I forgot to talk about. It's this.
お前が50年もの間そこで待っててくれていたのならあと 1,2 年だけ辛抱してくれませんか。私にも海賊の意地がある。壁に向かって待つお前とは約束通り。
Brook lost his life for a promise he wanted to fulfill to Laboon. Brook started off his journey with the Rumbar Pirates as a musician. His close friend Yorkie was the captain of this group and invited Brook to be their musician. Everything was well and good until Yorkie got sick. He contracted a plague-like disease that infected half the crew, so the crew makes the hard decision to separate all the infected members into one boat to return home. Yorkie entrusts Brook as the new captain beforehand, and Brook promises to watch out the remaining members for him. Soon after, the crew gets stuck in the Demon's Triangle, entrapping them in the fog with nowhere to get out of. They get attacked by another band of pirates and manage to fight them off, but with a cost. The crew they battle had poison laced into their weapons, affecting everyone. The crew don't have proper medicine on them, so they decide to do one last thing: leave a message to Laboon. A bombshell drops revealing the crew that left Laboon and promised to come back was Brook's older crew. They never forgot about him. They all died before they completed their journey and returned for Laboon. The crew decide they need to keep their promise to Laboon, so they give Brook a devil fruit that will give him a second chance at life to return to Laboon. Brook initially is hesitant, knowing this wouldn't be fair to everybody, but ever since Brook took over as captain, they find it necessary that Brook must be the one to return to Laboon. Brook eats the devil fruit, and as they dwindle down in numbers, they decide to leave a message to Laboon for Brook to deliver. They record a message and they sing Bing Sake one last time.
すかとよいの夢手を振る影にもう会えないよ何をくよくよ明日もつくよ
ミックスの酒を届けに行くよ4個一丁歌を船が飲んだどうせ誰でもいつかは骨を果てなし果てなし笑い話よほほほよ
どうしましたこれじゃカルテットトリオデュエットソロなんです伴奏だけ残して
俺の船への乗船条件は音楽が好きなこと泣く子も笑うルンバ海賊団の旗揚げだラブーン俺たちは必ずここへ戻る待ってろよ
The tone of instruments dwindle down slowly, leaving only Brooke left, who stops playing not because of the poison. He's crying because he doesn't want to be left alone. Brooke soon dies and regains his body after it decays, with his soul not being able to track his body in the fog, permanently leaving him in a skeletal form. Brooke tries to find a way out, yet the fog in the triangle doesn't let him, and one day he meets Gecko Moria, who steals his shadow and places it into a samurai named Ryuma. He battles Ryuma, yet he loses fast with the shadow inhabiting a samurai who has decades of swordsmanship. Brooke just gives up. He's not strong enough to fight, he can't escape, and even if he could, the sun will kill him, with him having no shadow to protect him at all. And all the people who came to Thread Bark end up losing their shadow, so Brooke goes insane, not knowing what to do. Brooke lost his life with no one coming to help. All he can do is play his violin in the fog until something happens. The Straw Hats end up as the light that saves him after years of isolation. He acts very similar to a senile old man because he is one. He throws out perverted comments at Nami and Robin. He provides wisdom to the crew and gets a spur of energy at random times. It's understandable why. Having no human interaction will get you to a point of insanity, that you start acting out of pocket when you have an opportunity to meet a group of people. Brooke acting like he popped 3 Broly boosts in a failed 2-man, so it's very understandable why he acts the way he does. The crew know this, so they don't really judge him when he says stuff out of pocket. The crew fight very hard for their shadow back and manage to get Brooke's shadow back with the help of Zoro. Zoro fights Ryuma and Ryuma loses, passing his black blade to Zoro to wield. With this, the good of this arc is Brooke regaining what he lost. Brooke regains a crew when he lost his old one, and Zoro gains a new blade after carrying one that has been rusted to nothing. The two share a moment together, sharing what they both lost and gained in that moment. Brooke is so thankful for this opportunity of having a crew to travel with that he shares Being Sake to everyone to hear. Everyone sings along, and Brooke shares a song dedicated to his old friend Laboon. Luffy tells him Laboon is still alive, waiting for him to this day. Brooke breaks down knowing that Laboon is still there for him even after 50 years of being gone. Brooke is crying not only because of Laboon, he's crying knowing he doesn't have to sing Being Sake alone anymore. The isolation that has built in Brooke's empty heart is lifted knowing that he can continue his journey with the promise of bringing the recording that his old crew entrusted with him. The burden Brooke carried is what drove him to insanity. He never wanted to be alone if it meant losing his crew, yet his crew were willing to let him live, and placing a trust that Brooke felt like he couldn't fulfill, especially with losing his shadow, preventing him from even stepping into sunlight. Brooke blames himself in some way that he is the only alive with the sacrifices of his crew, yet the news of Laboon waiting for him drives him into tears, with the old crew's lives not being for nothing anymore like he thought. He's thankful he gets an opportunity to reunite with Laboon to share Being Sake with the two crews he loves the most. I can't wait for this moment when it comes because I know it will have me crying when it does. Hearing the Straw Hats and Brooke's old crew sing Being Sake when the journey ends will be one of the best payoffs in One Piece, I know it. Brooke might have lost hope, but Laboon never did, and the Straw Hats made him regain that hope once again, that he will reunite with Laboon once more.
Niggas walking up and it's just me. Now it's just 3. Now it's just two. Now it's just me. Hey.
Sabaody was supposed to be Luffy's start towards the New World. Luffy finally obtained basically a complete group along with a new ship. Everything looked up from here for Luffy's journey. Sabaody is the halfway mark for his journey, but is also the halfway mark for other pirates being described as the worst generation along with him. The two main competitors were Law and Kid. Their bounties were closest to Luffy, showing to the world that they are up and coming. They were both seen as Luffy's main rivals for the One Piece. The three groups eventually get in trouble due to Luffy's shenanigans. The trio group were at the same place being the slave auction. One of Luffy's friends were caught and being sold as a slave where the Celestial Dragons were attending. The Celestial Dragons are shown as the top members of the societal hierarchy in One Piece. Their word is above everyone else, including the Marines themselves, like the Admirals. Luffy does not care though, because it's Luffy. So when a Celestial Dragon shoots Hachi in front of him, he does this.
お前、その目は何だい?
やめろ、麦。おめえらもただじゃ済まねえぞ。やめてくれ。俺が見えんのかい?
何する気だ、あいつ。
麦わらよ、本気か。
お前もムカつくい。な。
The trio get ready to escape the island due to the Navy being called in to arrest them. Usually, if a Celestial Dragon is hurt, a buster call is summoned towards the island. The Navy don't want to risk Celestial lives as there's multiple around the island, so they send in pacifists to take care of the groups. Side note, Zoro could have activated this procedure with him ready to kill one of them earlier before the events in the arc, yet I think Luffy being the one to set the course of actions is a good consequences of his actions as a captain. Just a side note. So one thing that's a good detail that was pointed out is that everyone except Luffy's crew make it out safely. Even though Kids and Law's group struggle, they manage to take out pacifistas to escape in time. This was going to be the case for Luffy's crew until Kizaru shows up and is about to take out Zoro, but Rayleigh shows up to give the crew some time to escape. The crew think they lucked out, but Kuma shows up. They just dealt with a pacifista with the main trio helping, yet they can't get a break with an Admiral and Kuma coming to stop them. Kuma just starts to make each member disappear one by one. Luffy just can't do anything to help. Seeing Robin reach out to Luffy as the last possible person that Luffy could help was sad to see. It's like watching a family member just being taken away from you. And Robin being taken like this was a good example of not being able to do enough for the people close to you. This string of bad luck was a breaking point for Luffy, leading to more unsettling events going forward for the remainder of pre-time skip. Luffy just couldn't accept losing what he built for the past year, leading to this scenario. Let's evaluate what Luffy's journey has been. The timeline of events of One Piece is kinda weird, since Luffy at this point has only spent around 7 to 9 months with his crew since the beginning of his journey. So let's put it like this, if this is the case, then the events that Luffy's faced has been most a week from each other if we're being generous. Luffy has spent more time with Rayleigh than the crew themselves, which is crazy, but it's whatever. Luffy breaking down is very reasonable. He's only 17 years old, so the fatigue, stress, and mental issues finally catch up with him, knowing that what he's built is gone instantly because of Kuma's actions. Kuma though only did this for the protection of the crew with what Zoro did for Luffy and Thriller Bark. This is the last action before he is turned into a pacifista himself by the government. So he asked Vegapunk to put an order when he becomes a cyborg. Protect the Thousand Sunny. So Kuma did the hard choice to put Luffy through these hard trials either indirectly or directly. While it was for the best for Luffy to learn from the mistakes he put himself in Sabaody, Kuma still felt responsible for causing his suffering. So that's probably why he asked Vegapunk to put that order in him once he became a cyborg. Showing us the selflessness of Kuma he's always had even when he was a kid very early on in the series, before we got his backstory in Egghead. Ace's death is the final nailing point for Luffy's suffering. Luffy failed saving his sibling, blaming himself for not being strong enough to protect the ones closest to him. He thinks he's alone for losing Sabo and Ace, until Jinbei makes him realize that the crew will always be with him. Luffy's suffering isn't something he should face by himself, with the crew promising to still meet up with him for his journey of Pirate King. The 2Y3D is a memo to the crew's bond for one another. All of the motivation that the Straw Hats during those 2 years of training was so they continue traveling without needing to worry of outside factors taking each other away again. The very first time in pre-time skip, the crew struggled with the pacifistas, but in post-time skip, they handled the pacifistas with ease. This feat by the crew shows that they have come far as pirates, ready to handle the new world. Even more prepared than Kid and Law, since the crew managed to catch up with them even after the 2-year head start they got into the new world. It's a good return for the crew, which I need to talk about since they come back to Sabaody where they left off. The Navy was expecting them to show up. It also shows later that Luffy's crew are the only one to survive after Wano, since the crew took 2 years to prepare while Kid's and Law's crews are basically out of the race. This is the perfect parallel to the Sabaody event, showing that the crew struggled now, then later prospered by taking a step back to evaluate their next course of action. I never realized this fact since I was coping with the fact that Law will make a comeback, but once Kid got destroyed by Shanks, I knew Oda wanted to make this parallel to Sabaody. Kid and Law are now leagues behind Luffy because of the progression Luffy got losing Ace and his crew members. Luffy had more of an inducement than the other two to want to get stronger. Now you might say, Fabi, why did you bring up Ace's death now? 2 reasons. It was necessary for my point of Sabaody, and 2, Ace's death is not the good of MarineFord. It's actually the opposite in my opinion. That's for another video, so I won't get into it now. I needed to bring up this part of the video as I think there's a moment in One Piece that I see in One Piece being the best scene ever in the entire series. Until I cover MarineFord, I'm not gonna go over it yet. Regardless, Sabaody as an arc is basically split in 2 by 3 other arcs, considering that the crew meet back up there, and I believe the good of Sabaody is when Luffy's suffering begins, since the crew get a silver lining even after all what happened until Ace's death. This fact is even more true because Luffy's power dramatically increases by him unlocking another form, as well as mastering Gear 2 and 3. Sabaody is a tragic start for Luffy's character, but Luffy manages to see the good after post-time skip. His crew came back to Sabaody stronger than ever, ready to continue their journey, even if they lag behind first. Originally, I was going to skip Amazon Lily, but until further evaluation, I can't do that because it will be disrespectful towards Boa Hancock and the feminist implications this arc indicates with Amazon Lily covering the inequality women face in society. 6'4" by the way. But seriously though, Boa seems more than what she looks like with her physiques. Her mistrust of men is warranted considering her history of enslavement and trauma. Boa and her sisters were captured a few years ago, prepared to be sold as slaves. Considering Boa's unique features, Oda never really goes into detail about what happened to the sisters. What we can presume is that they were probably going to be used with malicious intent since they are women. Women in real life who are sold in human trafficking situations or slavery in other countries often are sold for sex trafficking for rich corrupt people around the world. We hear cases of this frequently of women managing to escape human trafficking situations, but those cases are just the tip of the iceberg. This happens more frequently in other countries, usually the ones with low economies. It doesn't mean that it doesn't happen in first world countries. It's not far to presume this fate probably happened to the sisters and almost gave up on life until 4 years later, after the capture, they were freed by a fisherman named Tiger. The events are so traumatic to the sisters that Boa doesn't remember the first few days that happened, as well as the other two losing composure trying to forget what happened to them. In this beginning of the section, I said I was going to skip this arc for the video because I thought not much happens besides Ace's execution announcement, but rereading this section, I can see why Boa trusts Luffy fast and has feelings for him even if they've only met for less than a day. Luffy isn't the smartest person in the room, yet knows how to read people well. This ability to read someone's emotions affects Boa the most in this arc because when Luffy crashes into the bathhouse, Boa asks if he saw their marks. Luffy obviously saw, but his attention is only on the marks since he's seen them before. Boa uses her devil fruit powers on him for intruding. This has no effect on Luffy since Luffy's attention isn't on Boa's physical appearance besides the mark. Call it Luffy being dense or doesn't have much attraction towards her. The fact that he can tell Boa prioritizing hiding her mark than her body is something he picks up with this interaction. Once he starts fighting one of the sisters for his right to free Margaret and leave the island, the sister's mark is about to be shown to everyone in the island. The marks are a symbol of shame to them, symbolizing a sort of moment of weakness the sisters faced during their time in slavery. Luffy jumps on her to cover the marks, which ends up catching Boa off guard, as Boa never directly said to him that they don't want people seeing it. Boa is forced to thank Luffy by giving him his request. This action is actually a trick to test Luffy to force him to either pick his request to leave the island or free Margaret from being punished. Luffy bows to her, thanking Boa knowing that Margaret will be safe, completely reversing her perception of Luffy. The final thing that reinforces this perception is learning that Luffy punched a celestial dragon without fear. Boa wouldn't even dare do the same thing, since she fears going against the people that enslaved her would put her back into that position. Boa at this point falls in love with Luffy because of Luffy destroying the perception of men and what men are. She is willing to go against the government to help Luffy as sort of a thanks for breaking that perception she's always had towards her disdain towards men. Luffy gives Boa that wake up call that not all men are against her in a men dominated society. Boa is very warranted to hate men as long as she lives because of the actions the celestial dragons did to her. She looks down on men as a scare tactic to people lower than her in rank, as well as an inspiration towards her tribe to not fear the people outside the island. Boa puts on a facade because deep down she's still afraid that if she's looked at as weak, the same fate will happen again. Along with that, she has a cruel unfairness to men who trespass towards the island like Luffy, but Luffy himself was able to get her that resolve she's never had from anyone else. Boa was able to start the road of healing and her trust in humanity for men, even if that trust will always be towards Luffy himself 99% of the time. We might never see this in One Piece or how she progresses her trust towards men, but she's a good example of Luffy having the effect on people to get the resolve they needed for the longest time. I never see people consider Boa as a candidate for the Straw Hat members for the actions she did for Luffy. I wouldn't be surprised if she joined, since she isn't just I love Luffy type of character. She has a deeper complexity as a female character in One Piece, and is the few to actually get that progression shown to us properly. Oda tends to have a hard time highlighting female side characters who aren't in the crew. Still, seeing more Boa content in the future would be nice, considering how she has an official bounty on her head, and her teaming up with Luffy would be a nice twist for the crew dynamic. I can see why she wouldn't join though. It would be more powerful towards her character to not have any protection from an outside factor like the world government, and have her pirate group / civilization to build up their own empire that can rival the other major groups in One Piece. If we don't see more Boa, that's fine. At least more Baby Yoda. Please. Please. Luffy faced physical trauma no innocent man should ever face, like the average COD Zombies fan not having a good zombies mode for 9+ years. Luffy was entering hell, literally and metaphorically. Impel Down is a direct reflection of Dante's Inferno with its own twist. Hell was waiting for Luffy, but one man helped him through that trauma. My gay goat, Bonclay. The good of Impel Down is Bonclay in its entirety. For a person whom he's only known for a month max, Bonclay has a pure of heart for the people close to him. We never got a backstory for him, which I wish we would have gotten, but his determination for Luffy is a reflection of Zoro's determination for Luffy's life. Zoro was willing to lay his life down the line, and Bonclay was no different. Luffy caved into hell, not knowing the consequences that followed to saving Ace. Bonclay knew those factors, yet he stood his ground against the cold and frosted layers of hell as wolves were attacking Bonclay, who was desperately fighting for Luffy's life. Bonclay pinned against the corner, kept fighting no matter the outcome of his life. The only thing that mattered was his friend's safety. Just as things look bleak, they are saved by Ivankov's team, who reside in between levels away from the hell floors, sort of like a paradise. Bonclay stalled for enough time for the two to be saved and get Luffy medical attention. He learns the procedure Ivankov gave Luffy would take days though. After almost a few hours of surgery, Bonclay stands outside the room where Luffy is locked in suffering, and starts to cheer for Luffy to not cave in yet, as Ace has a few more hours till his execution. Ivankov's group rallied up together with Bonclay cheering him on. Draw-chan, don't give up, they said in unison for hours on end. After 20 hours, Luffy is silent. Ivankov tells them Luffy didn't make it, until Luffy starts yelling for food, shocking Ivankov as the healing process was complete in under a day. Ivankov, Luffy, and Bonclay start a riot with the indirect help of Blackbeard's crew trying to free prisoners for their crew, and the level 6 prisoners decide to help the trio to escape Impel Down. The group managed to escape Impel Down, but realize they have no boat to escape with the Marines waiting for them to attack. Jinbei calls for a school of whale sharks for the group to raid and stall the Marines so they could escape by taking over a Marine's battleship. Everyone celebrates momentarily that they escape until it's cut momentarily that the giant set of doors are blocking their way, along with the Marines chasing them down. The group fight back regardless since they've come this far not being able to turn back. The group needs a miracle, that being that Warden tells his man to open the doors. Why would the man in charge of Impel Down tells his man to open the doors that will set the group free? It's Bonclay using his power to disguise as them, fooling everyone into freeing the group. Bonclay knew one person needed to stay back so the doors would open. Luffy doesn't want to leave him behind because Bonclay has done everything for him to get to this point. Jinbei tells him that there's many men they left behind and to just keep going since it's better than no one escaping, seeing that they knew the risk. Luffy calls out for Bonclay, who's teasing the warden about tricking everyone. Luffy along with the group tells Bonclay, thank you. Bonclay was an angel in disguise freeing them from hell. Bonclay didn't want them to find out about his action of heroism, yet everyone couldn't escape if it wasn't for him. His fate is unknown to this day, or until Oda decides to lore drop as I write this script. Oda being Oda probably has him alive, considering that there's a leak about saving Bonkley from Impel Down movie when Red came out. Still, Bonkley has never been selfish, not even a hint of it. He embodies his virtue to his core and only wants the best for people he has met. It didn't matter to him what he got in return. Bonkley's reward was always seeing his friends safe and sound. Luffy felt bad relying on him the whole way into Impel Down. That's why Bonkley wanted to stay silent. Luffy couldn't go back and save him, but he needed to at least thank him for being able to save Ace. Bonkley tears up knowing that his actions didn't go unseen, giving him enough time to stall the warden from closing the gates. It's a sad goodbye to our beloved unofficial Straw Hat member.
Daddy! Yes! Yes!
The One Piece is real. What does it mean to pass the torch to the legacy you created? A torch that has been fading for years, yet you couldn't let it die until you were sure it wouldn't go out of control. A fire that isn't controlled is a fire that will spread quickly without a proper path. A point of a forest fire is to release important nutrients back into its environment. Forest fires actually do a lot of good for its ecosystem. The issue arises when the fire spreads out too much and destroys everything in its path. For Whitebeard, the two fires in his crew were Blackbeard and Ace. The fire was Whitebeard's legacy to his crew and the future generation of pirates, as he died reviving the fire that the Marines wanted desperately to put out. The Marines desperately wanted to kill Ace, since doing so set a precedent that the King of Pirates' son, Porchgash D. Ace, would be a discouragement to future pirates wanting to go after the One Piece, or go against the system that had been built over 800 years. The government had everything planned. Arrest Ace, set his execution date, livestream his execution, bait Whitebeard's crew with an ambush they predicted, and take out Whitebeard's crew, showing a power stance to the world of pirates that the government's word is law. They had everything planned, everything except Whitebeard himself. The government prepared for a war, but failed to realize Whitebeard was also prepared to save his son regardless of planning set by the government. Whitebeard takes out his medical equipment and stands up, towering over not only his crew, but the Marines as well, showing them that the power he holds in the pirate world. A vice admiral attempts to sneak up on Whitebeard, but gets absolutely destroyed, showing the military their plan won't go as planned. Whitebeard's real name is Edward Newgate. As the war between pirates and Marines unfolds throughout the arc, we get bits of pieces of Edward's life. This arc is not just a war arc by itself, it's Whitebeard's life presenting itself with these moments being his last moments of his life. Remember when I talk about dreams in the earlier section of this video? Expanding just a bit on that, dreams that One Piece characters have wanted are always on a large scale, no matter how you look at it. The ambitions of One Piece is something that has always been important to its character narrative of writing when presenting us with a new sidecast. It expounds on how a character's writing will resonate with us, either classifying them as someone whose goals match the Straw Hats crew's own crazy ambitions, or classifying them as someone in One Piece where their goals don't really push them to go as far, since their goals might not be as big as the important characters in the series. Remember though, even the simplest and greedy desires in One Piece can make it far into the pirate world. A dream's success will vary on how much the person believes in it. It explains how Blackbeard has made it so far using cheap tricks, and it's no different for Edward, excluding the greedy parts that his son has done. What Edward wanted most in life was a family. Now this goal of his is something he knew he wanted even early on into his life, but didn't know how to approach this goal. Edward spent most of his beginning days of piracy by hopping crew to crew trying to figure out what he wanted to do. We don't get every crew he spent with during his travels. We do know that he eventually ends up with Rock's D. Sebek's crew, either by chance or had some sort of admiration/friendship he might have had for him. It's not hard to presume that after leaving his crew, that Whitebeard realized if he wanted a family, then needed to start one by himself in his own way. We only have presumptions to go by at this point, but this isn't a bad thing, as this gives us a leisure way to interpret his story to fit how we see it. I see it as a man who has tried to search for a family by joining crews expecting to get that feeling of connection he has always wanted. Due to either lack of satisfaction or lack of connection with people, none of these options work, since later in Wano, even if this anime only it's still canon, Kaido cries hearing that Big Mom has died, as he saw Big Mom as an older sibling. Edward never got that connection with his old crew members, seeing that he never mentioned them during his final moments. The connection he thought he would have to achieve from his peers was a wrong approach for his goals of finding a genuine family. He decided he needed to basically take in people he could help, seeing it's his responsibility as a longtime pirate to guide those who are lost, just as he was during his early pirate days. His motivation to start his own crew probably came from his time with Rock, seeing Big Mom and Kaido set off to start their own journeys. Maybe this was the path he needed to take to allocate the hole he had in his desires of wanting people he could build a genuine relationship in his life. This plan ends up working as he sees everyone in his crew as his son, encouraging them to find a purpose of some kind. He would help people who didn't have anywhere to go and take them in, adopting them so they could find a purpose again. Edward's crew was basically similar to a summer boot camp but pirate form. They lived loyal to each other as a big family everyone needed at the lowest point of their life. Edward eventually meets Ace, inviting him into his crew, seeing his determination, except that Ace is obviously in need of guidance. Ace is butthurt he couldn't beat him in a fight and tries to kill Edward, but fails multiple times due to Whitebeard being more powerful than him. The crew share with him that Edward saved them by giving them a role in their life, like a father figure that stepped in when they needed it the most. Ace learns that Whitebeard wanted the best for everyone in his crew, so he decides at that moment to make Whitebeard the king of pirates. In secret, Edward was planning on making Ace the king of pirates to follow his biological father's footsteps, Goldie Roger. Edward and Roger were rivals during their prime, but Roger wanted to become king of pirates even with their rivalry. Edward never challenged Roger for this goal, only wanting to create a family. Regardless, Edward still enjoyed having Roger as a rival, considering that Edward did achieve his goal in having his family, aka his crew. Things have changed completely when Ace joined though. After Roger's execution, it felt like Edward had a responsibility to carry on Roger's legacy with Ace himself. Reason why I say this is that Edward valued what Roger stood for in terms of belief and morality. Before Roger decided to give himself in, they had one last drink together and asked Roger what the D stands for. Now, we never get this answer, but Edward knew after this moment that people who carried the name D are destined to change the future. That moment could have been a catalyst for Edward to decide that Ace should be the king of pirates except himself. Yes, it happened before Ace was born, yet I still think it was still a factor to Edward's motivation for Ace. Also, it could be the reason why Edward decided to sustain his poor condition, so he can pass on his work to Ace to achieve in his father's footsteps. We learn after this arc that Ace never wanted to follow in his biological father's footsteps. He blames Roger for leaving himself as well as his mother behind. Other reasons as well, but Ace despises Roger. Ace saw Whitebeard as real father, and Edward realized when he was saving Ace that putting that high of expectations on Ace was a mistake on his part. Ace only gets captured because of Blackbeard committing the worst taboo in his crew, killing a crew member. Ace desperately wants to get revenge, so he decides to hunt Blackbeard. Whitebeard tells him not to go and to forget about it. What's done is done, but Ace says that he can't let it go. Both of them were right in this situation. Edward wanted Ace to not throw his life away because of his goals, as well as taking Shank's warning into consideration, saying that Ace needs to give up. Ace's reason is understandable. They can't just let a man who has eaten, sleep, even though they said he doesn't sleep, and adventure with them to just casually be left alone after committing a taboo. Edward admitted they should have come together and supported Ace. The reluctance to not do anything is what got Ace captured by the men he was trying to kill. Akainu takes advantage of this notion of his crew having doubts, and has one of the Whitebeard members stab Edward in the back. He asks why Ace gets special treatment. Whitebeard tells everyone he treats everyone equally, and he would have raided MarineFord if it was another son instead of Ace. He forgives his son for stabbing him, knowing that Akainu would have taken advantage of any crew member whom might have had any thoughts of Whitebeard having favoritism. Whitebeard forgiving his son dispels all those distrusts that Akainu tried to brew during the war, showing everyone that the trust he's built with his sons should not be taken lightly. Taking all this into consideration, Edward does this one last action before he dies for his sons, and it's this.
エースの意志を継ぐ者も現れる。血縁を断てど、あいつらの炎が消えることはねえ。そうやって、遠い昔から脈々と受け継がれてきた。そして未来、いつの日か、その数百年分の歴史を全て背負って、この世界に戦いを挑む者が現れる。戦国、おめえたち世界政府はいつか来る。その世界中を巻き込むほどの巨大な戦いを恐れている。興味はねえが、あの宝を誰かが見つけたとき、世界はひっくり返るのさ。誰かが見つけ出す。その日は必ず来る。ワンピースは実在する。
The greatest moment in One Piece will always be this. The reason being is that Edward represents One Piece and is an embodiment of the series itself. Whitebeard is a showing of what differentiates a pirate being a pirate versus someone becoming pirate for their goals. Edward achieved this goal a long time ago, until he realized he wanted to do something more for his sons. What was the last thing he could have done for them? Letting them go. Disbanding the Whitebeard pirates was something he absolutely needed to do for his sons. They relied on him too much like Ace did with wanting Edward to become king of pirates. They couldn't mark their own path seeing as they owed Whitebeard everything for saving them when the world turned its back on them. Edward needed to give up his life to show that the crew needed to mark their own path, and that they don't need to live for the crew. They can live for themselves now. This is also the reason why the remaining Whitebeard crew members fell at taking down Blackbeard, proving Edward right and wanting them to move on. Edward Newgate never wanted to be king of pirates, but he was destined to be, in my opinion. The Marines might have won the war, but they didn't win the war. Edward's last moment entirely caused a new age of piracy by reviving the pirate era the Marines tried desperately to shut down that Roger caused. Roger created the One Piece, and Edward revived the desire for it with an age of the strongest Marines, along with the pirates who are greedy, evil, and shame other pirates who go against the quota of the other pirates. Piracy was destined to die along Edward, until Edward faced death's door with one last action. The One Piece is real with the pirates who dream big, and the good of MarineFord is the legacy Whitebeard left for the future age of pirates, just as his rival did in his last moments. Edward Newgates is the best written pirate in One Piece and is the highlight of One Piece in its entirety. I state this as a fact, with Edward being a perfect representation of a successful pirate's life cycle. He has survived 2 pirate eras in his life, a far cry to an average pirate's life, with most of them either getting arrested, killed, or forgotten. Whitebeard managed to triumph above everyone else, believing truly into his ambitions. He is the role model of a future generation of pirates that are discouraged from following their true ambitions instead of monetary goals. Going back to Jaya again, Luffy showed why people like Whitebeard succeed. Doflamingo hammers this idea even more by punishing Bellamy in chapter 303, saying that it doesn't matter that if Luffy had insane ambitions. It's his fault for downplaying him and having Luffy leave a stain to his reputation. Doflamingo knows a new age of piracy is coming, and ironically he doesn't want Bellamy by his side when it comes. This crushes Bellamy's pride, with the things he said to Luffy coming true to himself instead. That's why Whitebeard's final moments are amazing, because of the fact that the revival of the age of piracy took a stance against pirates looking for trouble instead of using the power they hold to achieve more, or go against the system that discourages people from being curious in what the world holds for them. Evil pirates will always overshadow the pirates who are the ones who set in stone important events in society. Yet those pirates will fail at the end because of the outcomes that the high achieving ones accomplished. Whitebeard representing that is what makes this the best moment in One Piece. Better than the Gear 5 reveal, better than Blackbeard's speech about dreams, barely though, better than any Zoro moment we could have later down the line, and better than what the One Piece could ever hold in the future. Memes aside from Twitter shitposting about this moment, I will forever consider this one moment the most peak moment of One Piece. Edward is Oda's best writing character, period, with the actions of Whitebeard stood for. Yes, we might get a moment better than this down the line, but I'm very confident that this moment will stay the best moment in the series, for me at least. Just because that Edward's impact on MarineFord was a perfect showing of a character embodying what a series has been trying to convey to us. Gear 5 narrowly misses this objective because of the writing issues Wano has. With Whitebeard's last stand though, it's perfectly presented us in a way that shows us why we should care for the pirates that are like Luffy and Whitebeard. Whether this was the intention for Oda is up to you, but I'll die on this hill that Whitebeard's last stand is the best moment in One Piece.
How about a lie? You wanna know how I got these scars? My father was a drinker and a fiend. And one night, he goes off crazier than usual. Mommy gets the kitchen knife to defend herself. He doesn't like that. Not one bit. So, me watching, he takes the knife to her, laughing while he does it. He turns to me, and he says, "Why so serious?" He comes at me with the knife. "Why so serious?" He sticks the blade in my mouth. Let's put a smile on that face. And why so serious?
I don't think it's a coincidence that Doflamingo's nickname was Joker, since I think his character is supposed to be inspired from DC's Joker, specifically the Dark Knight's version. The two have some sort of trauma involving either directly or indirectly by their father figures. We don't get any sort of official backstory for the Joker. Still though, there's many theories what could have caused this, either from military PTSD, parental abuse, or society taboos placed on him. Even so, Dark Knight's Joker definitely has themes of father issues in his past. That's why I don't think it's too far to stretch to say that the Joker has some sort of inspiration for Doflamingo, considering Oda has hinted of Enies being inspired by Eminem, seeing as he was a fan during his early days. It's a theory from Reddit that I read, but still though, let's just go with that, alright? Let's just go with that. Like, who cares? You know what I'm trying to say. As well as the Dark Knight releasing in 2008 and DressRosa arc beginning in 2013. American media is bigger than they seem outside of the US, especially in Japan. In 2021, there was a citizen in Japan who dressed up as the Joker and injured 17 people with a knife, along with various fire attacks. His name was Kyota Hattori, and when asked why he attacked the Tokyo train station, he states that he adores DC's Joker and wanted to kill as many people as possible so he receives the death penalty. Obviously an extreme example, but it still applies knowing outside media from other countries do really have an impact in manga writing. The creator of My Hero Academia, Kohei Horikoshi, credits Marvel for inspiring MHA. There's even a Deadpool MHA manga collab that the two series did back then. Now, I'm not saying it's a direct inspiration, but ideas always strive from other ideas. It's very common in every work regardless if it's a direct inspiration or not. Oda probably saw The Dark Knight and wanted to show his interpretation, especially with all the shit Doflamingo has done to the citizens of Dressrosa, aka Viola. Maybe I'm reading too into this, but I don't care. I generally do think Doflamingo was inspired by the Joker in some way. Doflamingo's actions in Dressrosa is a story of a man descending into madness from what was stolen from him in his life. The deeds of the celestial dragons can never be forgiven by the people they see as lower. Forced to obey, any action that is seen unacceptable from the eyes of the celestial dragons could mean life or death for the common folks of One Piece. Doflamingo was meant to join a society filled with luxury, internal protection, and seen as a god. That life was robbed from him by his father, who wanted the modest life for his family. I genuinely think Doflamingo could have ended up as a good person, but due to unfortunate situations made him into a man filled with hatred in his heart. Now you may refer to the "Father, let's go buy some slaves" panel. I'm not gonna hard defend this, though he was a child and was getting accustomed to his new life, just remember that. His actions shouldn't be excused, as if he did stay a celestial dragon, I don't think he would have changed. Still, he has reasons to turn out the way he did. So let me remind you, what led Doflamingo to basically becoming the person he is. Doflamingo was born as a celestial dragon, meant to have the luxurious life with them. Life takes a turn as his father decides to resign their position with the celestial dragons, so they can live out a normal life with common folk. Doflamingo's against this, seeing why would they give up a life filled with protection and riches, but can't really do much in this scenario. They move into a small village to start their life, and eventually word gets out that they used to be celestial dragons. Doflamingo's father wants to get to know the people of the village, showing them that they have nothing to fear, because their family just wants a simple life with them. They reveal to them that they give up their status to be among them. The people of the village have had a bad experience with them, not being able to let go of the suffering the celestial dragons have done to them, so the village decides to torture the family for the generations of trauma they have faced. The family begged to be let go since they have nothing to do with it themselves. Doflamingo himself swears on his life he will kill them for this action they have committed. At that key moment, he knocks out everyone by unlocking Conqueror's Haki at a young age. The family travels around looking for a saving grace till tragedy hits with Doflamingo's mother passing away due to illness. Doflamingo eventually meets Treble. Treble notices the young boy's potential of becoming Pirate King. He gives Doflamingo a devil fruit along with a gun to start off his path back to what was stolen from his father. Treble plants the seed of spite into young Doflamingo's mind, offering him a gateway to salvage the grandeur life meant for him. Whether it was Treble wanting to hitch a ride for this life out of the dump is unclear, but it works as Doflamingo decides to point a gun towards his father. He blames his father for robbing the life he was destined for. Pulling the trigger will make a point of no return for him. His father says, "I'm sorry for being such a terrible father," marking the end for Doflamingo's old life while starting a new one. This new life introduces a new family that he promised to protect as long as they stay loyal. Law joins this crew sometime after, with a disease that will kill him eventually due to the environment he grew up in, corrupting his body with a mineral containing a harmful chemical. Corazon decides he will help Law get rid of the disease by stealing the Ope Ope fruit that Doflamingo wants for immortality, and essentially betraying his brother. He's been working for Sengoku to turn him in, feeling like his brother has gone down the deep end at this point. Doflamingo catches wind of this by connecting the lack of marine interventions when his brother left, so he intercepts his brother at the meeting point for the Ope Ope fruit and confronts him for betraying the family. Corazon is cornered by the family, revealing to them that he is in fact a marine that has been keeping track of them. Doflamingo doesn't react and asks where the fruit is along with Law. Corazon says Law has eaten the fruit, saying to just let him be free. At this point of Doflamingo, he doubles down to the point of no return he made years ago by deciding to kill his brother with no remorse. Killing Corazon was an admission for Doflamingo, saying his real family are the crew he built over the years and not his biological family, seeing as they have betrayed him in every key moment of his life. There was probably a moment of hesitation for Doflamingo, trying to understand why Corazon would betray him, yet Doflamingo knows that hesitation will get him killed, so he did what he did. Law reflects a side of Doflamingo that could have been if he decided to heal from his trauma instead of blaming people for his situation. That's why I say that Doflamingo is very similar to Joker. The two have had bad circumstances in life. Corazon faced the same issues as Doflamingo, yet he never blamed anyone except just unfortunate circumstances. It might be different with him not pulling the trigger, though Corazon trauma was used to take the path of righteousness and help Law being free of his condition. Joker has had the same problem in Batman Beyond. Terry calls out the Joker, saying that everyone has had a bad experience in life, but you don't see everyone becoming a psychopath just because they've had bad experiences in life. The Joker tries to cover up this point of criticism by saying to Terry to stop trying to be like Bruce. Terry can see the facade he is using to cover up how he truly feels, since Terry calling him out on this touched a nerve. Doflamingo has reasons to become who he is, seeing as his father gave up their safety and Corazon betraying them. Regardless though, the two just wanted the best for him at the end of the day. His father wanted a humble life to grow his family, and even if Corazon worked for the Marines, reporting his brother's activities, it is only because he didn't want to see Doflamingo take a path of trauma for the actions that happened to him during their childhood. Corazon has looked the other way many times instead of outright turning in Doflamingo, and even gladly gave up his life for Law if it meant that both Law and Doflamingo were going to be safe. The sacrifice was more for Law, but I think Corazon had a little hope left for Doflamingo up until this point of the story. The good of DressRosa is the descent into madness Doflamingo follows that affects not only him, but the people he gets involved with. He was a boy meant to have everything, yet couldn't enjoy the life he was promised due to situations he had no control over, so it led him into wanting revenge on the people who wronged him. A lot of y'all might be surprised why the good of DressRosa isn't Corazon's sacrifice, and that's because Corazon has a good backstory, but it's so heavily tied to Doflamingo himself for the most part. The parallel they follow is a yin and yang situation, considering the two had a little bit of each other inside of them, throughout their journey together. Still though, Corazon, while having a tragic backstory, to me gets overshadowed by his brother. Seeing Doflamingo madness is something you can't look away from watching this arc. He very much cares for the people close to him and his crew. They grew up together in the life of darkness. Regardless, he doesn't hesitate to betray them if needed. He only cares for himself due to the life that was robbed from him, and always will. He doesn't get attached, he manipulates the people he needs for his plans, he hurts innocent civilians with no remorse, all because he knows he can, since he possesses the power for it. He played every trump card against the government and Celestial Dragons to show them that even if he isn't a god in their eyes, like the dragons, it doesn't matter because he can control every card they have with his Joker card. The strings that set a tone of Doflamingo's past were now in his control during DressRosa. Even with a worthless piece, Doflamingo is the casino, and the house always wins no matter the player. If you've watched One Piece and are not watching this video not knowing anything about the series, Sanji has mentioned to the crew only once in Jaya that he was from the North Sea. The only member who found this weird was Nami, since to move from the North to the East Sea, you have to cross the Red Line, which is almost an impossible task without some sort of large transportation device. This one detail is a perfect example of Oda planning a small detail that we wouldn't have caught, as it becomes important leading to entire arc's causality. We get a lot of moments like this, but I see this as the best example considering that in Baratie, we only get told that Sanji was found by Zeff in another ship with us, having no prior history until Jaya casually mentioned Sanji being from the North Sea. It's the same thing with Zoro and Nami having complete mysteries towards what happened before they were basically adopted by their respected teachers / guardians. Sanji's a special case. Throughout the journey, it seemed like he had something to hide from the crew. Each of the Straw Hats had a resolution to handle before they joined Luffy to sail the seas, but with Sanji, all he really regained was his dream of finding the All Blue. You could say that letting go of his debt to Zeff was that resolution he needed, which is half true. Zeff never wanted to be repaid, only for Sanji to continue living, which ends up becoming a concurring theme that Sanji faces when confronting his true past. Sanji has been the one member in the crew who continuously throws his life for the crew. We have Enel's bold strike, chasing CP9 by himself, offering to give himself up to Kuma, stopping Doflamingo from attacking Nami halfway across the island, etc, etc. Wholecake Island answers why Sanji has basically put himself in these situations to give himself that validation that he is useful and not just a chef in the crew holding back everyone. This could be the reason why he basically instigated the rivalry he has with Zoro, since he sort of sees Zoro as the challenge he needs to strive to be more. Remember, in Baratie, Zoro's part of the reason why Sanji's will to find his dream ignites again, and him being just as strong as Zoro is sort of a favor he's doing to Zoro to show him that he won't drag down the crew. If you think that Zoro is stronger than Sanji, then that's fine, but you have to at least admit that they're very relative or very close in power, that if the two were to fight, then it would be a coin flip. If you disagree, then you're either a Zoro dick rider or just downplay Sanji. Ignoring who's stronger, Sanji never left that feeling of owing back to people who saved him, and never once in the crew has lived for himself. That's what Wholecake is trying to convey. The haunting of Sanji's true past finally catches up to him in this part of the story. Sanji's presented with a situation he couldn't run away from. Big Mom's crew catch up to Sanji, Nami, and Chopper at Zou Island, with the goal of having Sanji engage with one of their family members. Sanji initially refuses, but they threaten the Baratie members as a leverage since they explain that they could have the Baratie crew killed instantly with Big Mom's influence ranging around the world. Sanji agrees knowing that Zeff could be hurt, and he leaves a note to the other crew members saying he has something to deal with. The reason why Sanji agrees reluctantly is because his real biological family is the actual ones making the threats towards Baratie. The rest of the crew regroup with Nami and Chopper, deciding whether to chase after Sanji or not. Luffy decides to go get him, as he doesn't think Sanji will come back even with him leaving the note. So he goes to Wholecake Island with Chopper, Nami, Pablo, and a carrot. They quickly find Sanji, and in an unexpected turn, Sanji turns his back towards Luffy by challenging him to leave the crew. Luffy doesn't accept the challenge because he doesn't want Sanji to leave. Sanji still goes through with the challenge, attacking Luffy, but Luffy doesn't lay one finger on Sanji, letting him beat him down. Sanji ends the fight with a flashy attack, leaving a bloody beat up Luffy to lay there on the ground. As Sanji is leaving with his family, Luffy yells, "Without you, I can't become Pirate King," causing Sanji to break down in tears, knowing he can't go back. Now this is the moment a lot of people give Sanji unwarranted hate, and I'm so sick and tired of it. Hearing people say, if Zoro was there, he wouldn't let that slide. Zoro would not intervene in this fight. Kind of. I say kind of, as one side of Zoro would respect Sanji's decision to leave the crew, knowing that Sanji would have a reason to leave, but another side would retaliate not because he beat up Luffy, but because of the brotherly love they've had in the series. Zoro will never say outright that he wants Sanji to come back. It's in his character to not be sappy like that. I do think he will knock some sense into Sanji, like an older sibling knocking sense into their younger brother for not reading the situation or making a mistake they're going to regret. That's why I think Oda excluded Zoro from the arc, because Zoro will be a reminder to Sanji of not leaving his ambitions behind and focusing on what Sanji truly wants going forth if Zoro decides to take action. Excluding Zoro from Wholecake was a smart idea, with Oda acknowledging in some way that if Zoro was to see what just happened, then his actions would have affected the dynamic the crew has going for them. Another point of criticism that I see for this moment is Sanji didn't put enough faith in Luffy. I can see why people say this. Sanji just essentially leaves the group without consulting Luffy about the situation, as well as thinking Luffy isn't strong enough. What was Luffy actually supposed to do realistically? He barely survives going against Katakuri, with Katakuri also nerving himself to respect the match and use Gear 4 on Big Mom, but instantly gets knocked into base form. Also, another reminder, Big Mom has influence all over the world. Yes, it was Sanji's family that threatened the Baratie. Still, they had access to Big Mom's permission to do that if they wanted. That's why Sanji couldn't rely on Luffy, since if Luffy intervened, then he would be a target towards Big Mom indirectly, getting himself more of a target because of the actions in Fishman Island. People just tend to ignore that fact, and I'm so sick of seeing people say Sanji was unfaithful, when the whole reason of his actions in Wholecake was for the protection of the Straw Hats and the Baratie family. His biological family made sure he didn't do anything out of line without them finding out. The last point of criticism that people point towards Sanji is that he changes his decision after overhearing Pudding make fun of him, thinking that she was interested in Sanji. But can you blame him? Sanji was ready to go into a new life, expecting a beautiful wife waiting for him, the Baratie family safe, Straw Hat's crew safety guaranteed, and the island surrounded by food where he can cook as much as he wanted to practice his culinary skills. It's the life Sanji didn't originally want, yet it's something he doesn't mind settling for, with all these factors being in place. Pudding breaks that hope, with Sanji overhearing that the Vinsmoke family will be killed, and that Pudding never cared for him in the slightest, insulting Sanji on the way he acts, looks, and thinking that she wanted the best for him. The good of Wholecake is Sanji finally finding his resolution that he's been needing, and that is he shouldn't live for the sake of others. He needs to live for the sake of himself. He runs towards Luffy to feed the food he originally wanted to give to Pudding, because the food he made was a meal that he usually makes for the crew due to habit, acknowledging that he can't let go of the Straw Hats. Being a chef is what gave him the most joy, taking care of the crew when they were hungry is what gave him joy, and chasing the All Blue is what he wants the most, not by himself but with the crew that became his family at sea. Luffy's hunger strike was a message for Sanji for him to do what he wants, and what he was doing to protect the people close to him ended up hurting them. This idea of finally achieving peace with yourself is pushed even further with Sanji and Wano, which I'll cover in the next section, but still Sanji can finally let go of the past and build the future Zeph, Luffy, and Raiju was able to offer him. With this mentality, Sanji can finally let bygones be bygones with the Vinsmokes, considering his only sister was the only one who truly cared for him. Raiju is the reason why Sanji saves the Vinsmokes, because Raiju gave Sanji that push he needed early in his life to run away from his family to escape the abuse he's been facing. Even if Raiju acted the same as her other siblings, she secretly cared for Sanji, feeling bad that Sanji had to live up to expectations that he never was able to meet to his father. With their mother passing away, before Sanji deciding to leave the Vinsmokes, Raiju felt responsible for not being able to protect Sanji when she needed to. Whether it was her genetics holding her down or unsure what she could do being really young isn't what was important at that point. Raiju couldn't uphold a promise that their mother trusted her with, and decided that she needed to be the one to let go of Sanji from the family instead of their father. She did it harshly, yet she knew if it was to make sure that Sanji never returned to the family that hurt him, then it was a price to pay. Judge could have never done this for Sanji, because he would see it as an act of kindness to Sanji, and Sanji without a doubt hates him. He would rather keep in a dungeon to suffer until he grows old than have the Vinsmoke's name stained by Sanji if people found out that Sanji was part of his family. Raiju doing this for Sanji was a necessary action for his character. The cycle of himself being saved over and over again was eating at Sanji still though. He felt like he needed to pay back the people close to him, yet the only thing that truly eating him away was not moving on when the people who set him free expected him to do that. Wholecake is an end to that cycle of self-hatred / guilt Sanji bared within his expedition with the crew. He thought he did let that feeling go when leaving the Baratie. All he really did though was push what he felt aside until the Big Mom family reminded him that he hasn't truly left his past away. This arc is an expansion of what living with fear could do to us as people, as we feel like we have to repay the kindness given to us by the people we see very dear. Sanji followed a path of self-loathing, risking the lives of people close to him just because he wanted to feel useful after years of being called worthless by the Vinsmokes, who were supposed to be his family. That's why whenever Sanji and Nami face each other after the Luffy vs Sanji incident, Sanji asks for forgiveness, but Nami tells him she'll work him twice as hard for her to forgive him. Now, this is Nami being Nami, because that's how she would act in this type of situation if she saw Luffy, who she respects the most, being disrespected in front of her. For me though, I see this as Nami telling Sanji indirectly that I will be relying on you more than I usually am, so stop beating yourself down, as a way to tell him that he will always be a valuable necessity for the crew. She wants to make sure that Sanji doesn't lag behind again and has the crew panic like they did in Zou and Water 7 to get a crew member back. The whole getting Sanji back fiasco was not a Robin situation necessarily. Sanji made a stupid mistake not in placing trust to Luffy, and Nami knows this more than anyone. It's the same thing that happened with Arlong back in East Blue. Her telling Sanji she'll work him more is a good thing for Sanji's progression going forward, so that Sanji's feelings won't get in the way again next time if another situation like this arises with him or another crew member. Nami just conveys her feelings like this towards Sanji because she wants things to go back to what they were before any of this happened. It's sort of a treat in a way for him if it means he won't trouble everyone again, and having Nami rely on him more, so more indirect time spent together for the two. It's a win-win for Sanji in the end of the day because, you know, woman. He just let me for real. As I was thinking of the goods of Wholecake, I was trying to find other moments to cover, yet Sanji always kept coming in mind with the start and almost the end of the resolution he gets. The character progression he has is what I wish we see for every character in the crew, but I'm glad he still got it. Crew being an MVP is something I will acknowledge. That panel where he laughs in front of Big Mom after destroying her picture is the ultimate lick back. The same disrespect as pissing on someone's grave. Bro was cold with it. Everyone loves the Katakuri vs Luffy fight. I do too, but the only thing that fight offers is a power up for Luffy, and to me that's a little boring when we were talking about actual progression. The only highlight of that fight was Katakuri himself. I wish we would have gotten a bit more of that when it came to Luffy. Snake Man was hyped though, I won't lie. The snakes covering his body was an amazing design choice, I will admit. I think that's all I have for this arc, to be honest. Now finally, we can move on to the last arc of this video, Wano.
It's never finished. Master got me working. Someday Master set me free. Dude, shut up, Cartman!
I have no one to blame but myself. I had this video idea in my mind for a few months, but only actually worked on it seriously in August. I scrapped the original script back in June because of work, as well as laziness hitting during the summer, until I decided to lock in and stop being a bum. Now I'm facing the dilemma whether to cover Egghead. I guess y'all will find out if I did it or not. I didn't. Anyways, I'm debating how to do this section of the video. Wano is a long arc with its 4-year runtime back in 2019. The arc was done in 3 acts following a play type of theme that the anime portrayed pretty alright for the most part. Brewing a theory in the community on why Zoro would kill Kaido, boy did that age badly. I can either pick the good of each act, pick just one good, or pick one act I see as the good of the arc. I didn't think about how I was going to do Wano unlike the other arc since I already knew what to talk about. Probably the best course of action for this arc is to just pick out moments from Wano I enjoyed the most, like in Alabasta. It'll be easier for me as well as not just limiting myself to one moment the whole time. This arc is as big as Big Mom, or your mom in fact, so I'm just gonna cover multiple moments I enjoyed from this arc. First good I'll cover is Kaido himself. Kaido joins the roster of cold-ass villains in One Piece with Crocodile, Lucien, and Nell. First time we see him officially, he gives Luffy the notorious backshots of doom. He is a very common antagonist of One Piece, yet the mystery of why he's taken the route he has to enslave Wano is interesting. You could chalk it up to, just because he can, all he wanted the most was a proper death by the hands of someone stronger than him. This mentality was probably given to him by his old crew with Sebek. Rox was deemed the most dangerous pirate in history during his travels. Big Mom treated Kaido like a younger sibling and gave Kaido his devil fruit. Wiper was seen as the strongest man in the world, so Kaido probably dedicated himself to be the strongest creature. And Rox was a pirate who wanted to take over the world, and his mentality is probably what stuck with Kaido to become who he is today. Kaido is a product of his environment by his crew, which led him to the path of wanting to find a purpose of his own. He wanted to die not by just anyone. If he wanted to just die, then why wouldn't he fight Whitebeard or Shanks, or even have a rematch with Odin? My theory is that he challenged him, but Whitebeard spared his life because he saw Kaido as his own son, since they were in the same crew. And with Shanks, I think he was going to challenge him originally when he got intercepted during MarineFord. Shanks probably promised him another foe stronger than him. That's why Kaido never interfered with the war when he wanted to originally. You might be saying, if he wanted to find a worthy opponent, why would he commit suicide by falling thousands of feet in the air? Two reasons. First one is Kaido won't be satisfied dying by other factors except for under his own terms, toaster bath, or by someone stronger than him. He has taken this route to the extreme, yet nothing seems to be working in his finds to end himself. Kaido's depressed, thinking of the notion that no one is willing to give him the satisfaction death he wants. Like a warrior that has dominated the battlefield, though he can't seem to find someone who will meet his requirements, so he resorts to the worst possible option someone can do to oneself. The second is Joy Boy himself. He wants to die by the hands of the liberator of the world. In the manga, we never know why Kaido is so intrigued by Joy Boy, except for in the anime. The anime expanded on King's backstory, showing us Kaido freeing King from captivity of the Marines because of King's genetics as a Lunarian. After that incident, King tells Kaido that he could be Joy Boy that his people have praised for years. Kaido doesn't really react much to this comment. It's obvious that Kaido could never be Joy Boy, and he realizes that full well more than anyone. The main reason being his love for battle and wanting to face a strong foe that could take him down, satisfying this quest for a proper death. Kaido doesn't really care for the people below him in terms of power, because he doesn't need to. They don't offer what Kaido is wanting in life, so Kaido doesn't care for what happens to the citizens of Wano. A man driven to insanity because of his want of battle lust, yet he can't find anyone who can satisfy that hunger. He drowns himself in sake to forget of his inner conflict that his Onisai drives him into. Kaido is genetically wanting for battle. It doesn't help that his devil fruit could be indirectly affecting this want even more. When a predator is hungry, they look for prey, but when a predator is bored, they look for another predator to compete with. Kaido is on top of the food chain that he has indirectly achieved, yet the desire for more never comes until Luffy challenges him for the freedom of Wano. Kaido thinks that the worst generation is the weak one in his eyes. They piggyback off the work of the pirates before them and group up when needed. He initially thinks Luffy is the same, because Luffy loses very easily, many times. His curiosity only starts to catch interest when Luffy actually manages to hurt him in Roof Piece. Kaido is very dominant regardless. He doesn't mind playing along to see if Luffy can just maybe, give Kaido what he has wanted for his whole life. Just as the climax of the fight reaches, a third party interrupts Luffy's attack, which causes Kaido to kill Luffy when Luffy's guard gets dropped by the third party. Kaido looks in distraught, as the one man who could have given him a challenge is interrupted again by another third party factor that had no business taking the one thing he's wanted most in life. Kaido doesn't say anything, except he raises his arm and deals a finishing blow to the person who interrupted the fight. Kaido leaves the area dissatisfied, knowing this marks the end of his dream of finding a worthy opponent. Kaido is probably wondering at this point, why me? To what just followed? Was this divine intervention for the enslavement of Wano? Is he cursed to just follow this repeating cycle of powerful foes that would just end up dying because of other factors ruining his dreams? Kaido didn't have words to express what he felt. He just returns to the castle to finish off the remaining rebels intruding in his celebration. Nothing can help Kaido at this point. The awakening of Joy Boy is Kaido's revival into finding a worthy opponent. The one man he wanted to face rises from the grave and drags Kaido for a rematch, which confuses Kaido at first, but Kaido quickly ignores this confusion and finally gets ready to what he wants the most: a proper death. Kaido's fate is unsure. I'm convinced he hasn't died because Oda refuses to kill off people for some reason, yet I don't think Kaido died in this battle. He never got the death he envisioned. Luffy did give him the proper fight his Onisai has craved for the longest time. Kaido as a villain has a lot of thick layers to his actions. He's a creature begging for mercy, yet continuously hurts others because he can. He gave up on the opponent that would liberate his lust for battle ever since Odin's death. Maybe Kaido did want to be Joy Boy at some point. His actions would never have considered him a candidate even if he wanted to. Joy Boy is about liberation and freeing the weak from the tyranny that rules the world. All Kaido did was enslave innocent people for his own benefit, even with the power to free them from Orochi's corruption. He decided to join Orochi instead of doing the morally good option and slowly destroy the history and culture of Wano that the people praised, making them suffer by having them working in factories for no pay, starving the villages outside the main city, and forcing citizens to rely on smiling fruits as a food source, causing them to bear a curse until they die. die. I think Kaido didn't understand compassion due to the environment that raised him, and even when he got compassion from Big Mom, it was always a monetary, so he always thought that compassion came at a cost, which acted on him to neglect it. The good of Kaido is the mysterious nature he possesses with the thickness of simplicity he carries. There's more to Kaido than just he enslaves Wano and is cold-hearted. It's the why he does for what he does that lingers into his character with an ominous backstory that led him into these events. Kaido isn't just another Lucci or Nell in the story. The two do what they do because it's what gives them joy the most. At face value, Kaido seems like another villain who just does what he wants, and that's fair to say. But the reason why this is the case is what makes him a better written villain than the other two. Kaido was a creature of wild nature that was raised to be that creature of evil and destruction. There was no one to keep him in check except Big Mom. Big Mom didn't do a good job though, and encouraged his behavior knowing that he would have to repay her down the line by giving Kaido his devil fruit when they went their separate ways after God Valley. Kaido embraced his own side and never looked back until he got too strong for anyone to challenge that led him to a self-destruction nature in the end. Kaido was a slave to genetics and had to pay the price for it by never getting what he truly wanted. He still got what he wanted with the awakening of Gear 5 in the end, but that self-destruction nature that was brewed into him for over years and years of encouragement is what led him to his downfall by the one man he seeked. If he comes back into the story later, then it will be his death. Okay. I'm gonna be honest. I'm like, I have the amazing world of Gumball like right in front of me as I'm like reading off the script. And you know that episode where like Gumball has a dream of being cucked by his brother? That fucking scene where he just kicks on the TV while Darwin is just watching TV is so fucking stupid. Alright, let's just go back to the video. If he comes back into the story later, then it would be nice to see him find a purpose that isn't necessarily for selfish purposes. It would show that the creature that was a slave to his genetics was freed by the liberator he faced, and having the shackles of battle broken for once in his life. Yeah, that's it for Kaido. Next good is the continuation of Sanji's inner struggle he faces in Act 3 of Wano following the Wholecake dilemma. Yeah, more Sanji glazing, get over it. This struggle of Sanji comes back because of a Germa suit given to him. The suit is given to Sanji from Niji as a thanks for saving their lives from Big Mom's family. Sanji rejects the suit originally but eventually puts it on to help Usopp and Law escape the risky situation at night. He gives himself the name Soba Mask to push away the original name associated with the Vinsmokes. At the raid, Sanji puts it on again, fighting King, trying to protect the Straw Hats from being attacked, but after receiving a fatal blow, he starts to feel unusual. The attack that King used on Sanji would have destroyed his body, yet it didn't. He wonders why, until Queen manages to get a clean attack on Sanji's neck with his sword. Instead of Sanji's head rolling on the floor, the blade breaks completely, leaving Sanji shook that he isn't headless from Sekiro. This event spirals Sanji, completely fearing that he would become his siblings and potentially break his moral code. He calls Zoro that if anything was to happen where he turns into someone he's not, then he wants him to end his life. Zoro's confused why Sanji would suggest this. Still though, he gives him his word that if anything does happen, he'll end his life. Sanji runs around the island trying to escape this fate, and he finds a group of women who blame him for hurting one of their peers. The woman is bleeding from her head, and Sanji tries to help, but they chase him away for hurting her. Sanji wonders if he did actually hurt her by transpiring what happened. He realized that when he was running, he hit her by accident. The number one rule Sanji lives by has been broken, and this completely ruins him. The teachings of Zeph and his mother's kindness is all thrown out the window for him. He pledged to become better than his siblings, yet it seemed like it was too late. As he faced Queen questioning whether to accept his Vinsmoke genes, Queen states he hurt the woman Sanji thought he hit for rejecting him. Sanji's relieved knowing he didn't break his rule, escaping that notion of becoming his siblings, yet right after he gets frustrated for Queen daring to hurt an innocent woman. Episode 1061 does so much justice for this moment. It is my favorite episode of Wano, and it's the best moment of the third act to me. The echoes that were following him the whole arc never made him accept that he returned to the crew. Those echoes prevented Sanji from actually returning to the crew officially in his mind, until Sanji realized he is not Sanji Vinsmoke anymore. He is the son of Zeph and is Blackleg Sanji of the Straw Hats, making him return to the people who will always be there for his darkest moments. It is a beautiful moment of Sanji finally hearing the calls of the sea for the first time since DressRosa, instead of the people who've been haunting him in his childhood. That's why when Robin was called for help by him, Robin was flattered that someone like Sanji, who wouldn't put a woman in danger under any circumstances, would call on her for help in a situation that would require him to break his code. She even states that Sanji would be the wings to soar Luffy to being the Pirate King. I know the official Japanese translation only mentioned him and not Zoro, while the English translation mentioned both of them. I choose to believe the Japanese one due to the fact that it fits Sanji more, and I see Zoro more as the shield or sword that Luffy carries, metaphorically that is. It hammers down the statement of Luffy needing Sanji to be Pirate King even even more, since Sanji has always satisfied Luffy's cravings after every expedition, like a warm meal waiting for him after a snowstorm. Sanji is a man worried about the history of his family, who bounded him his whole life, even when he left. The only family he failed to realize were the ones who made him who he was to begin with. Zeph and the Straw Hats are his real family, and Sanji can go back to them without regret as the man he wants to be. He can let the waves of the sea sound out the calls of his past. Okay, some off-script moments. Yeah, if you haven't told, Sanji's probably my favorite One Piece character, and a lot of the metaphors that I used with like the sea and stuff really did come from 1061. Even though I'm not the biggest fan of the One Piece anime, I will admit that Toei did a really good job with the scene of him going back to the Straw Hats, because it does reinforce what I said earlier of him able to go back to the Straw Hats even more, since he never got that clearance. Yeah, I just felt like I needed to include this part. This is just an off-script moment. I'm literally recording this at 11:40, like near 12 a.m. before I go to sleep for work. But still, though, yeah, that moment in the anime was really good. Cause it just was. That's it. It just was. Yeah. Okay, let's move on. Let's do one more good to end this section. I love Gear 5 in the manga, not the anime. I'll just stick with the manga for this point. Gear 5 inspiration is obviously based on Goku's Super Saiyan forms with its own wacky twist. It is the representation of Luffy's character and what he stands for. The liberator of the world chose Luffy to continue his journey of freeing the world. He panicked when Luffy ate the fruit, but quickly realized that the devil fruit chose Luffy if this event happened. Devil fruits carry their own will if it's based on a person or animal to show that the fruits are alive. Vegapunk explained in Egghead that Luffy essentially becomes Joy Boy himself when transforming, but since they act so similar, we never noticed this showing of harmony between the two. It's like the two work as one to show the awakenings happen on the compatibility of the person and its fruit. It's not stated as the exact case for Devil Fruit awakenings. It makes sense with all the other people who've awakened their fruit over the years in One Piece. Doflamingo's fruit is string based and was the first confirmed awakened user to us, showing that he can turn inanimate objects to string if he touches them in some way. This awakening could have been because of his nature to control others for his use, either literally or mentally. Regardless, it's a perfect example showing that Doflamingo is one with his fruit. He fully embraced this need to control others for his benefit when given the devil fruit. We don't know if the fruit has a will of its own since it's not based on a living thing. Another awakened user with a fruit based on a living creature is Lucci. We reunite with Lucci and Egghead with him wanting revenge on Luffy for the events in Enies lobby. The awakened form isn't a big change from his old form. It's just bigger and has black flames surrounding him like Luffy's white clouds, making this a common feature for most awakened fruits, if all devil fruits can be awakened. Let me tell you a lecture about leopards. They are good at what they do. Most animal experts can tell you they sit around the middle of the pack of the cat family even with their small stature. They can climb, swim, and have a decent bite force that rivals other bite forces in their families. They excel at each category that other cats tend to lack at instead of specializing at one place. Think of a leopard as Toyota Corolla. They aren't the best or the worst option. They're just an all-around solid choice that could get you far with proper maintenance. I think a jaguar fruit would have been better for Lucci, but I can't see why Oda went this route. He has a one-man army, and awakening his fruit after only a year or so shows him and his fruit being perfect for each other. Luffy and his fruit are one, unlike Lucci. Luffy died in the rooftops, yet his devil fruit took over his heart to give him another chance at life, becoming unified with him. The power of imagination revived Luffy in a spur of the moment when he needed it the most. His previous form showed the creativity of his fruit over the years. He uses his rubber properties to pump blood and increase his speed and strength in Gear 2. Gear 3, he expands his body parts to increase his strength while sacrificing speed. When Haki got introduced into his arsenal, he used Red Hawk as an advancement of Gear 2 and 3. Gear 4 takes all these principles by maximizing Haki, speed, and strength. If he thinks he lacks speed during this form, he switches to Gear 4 Snake Man, which increases his speed even more than it does in his regular Gear 4th mode. The hints of Gear 5 were there during the reveal of Gear 4th. It's weird that Luffy initially thought his fruit was the Gum Gum fruit, yet he called himself a rubber man. It's a detail I picked up when watching the series, considering that Luffy never really used anything actually gum related, as you'd think a fruit named Gum Gum would give him the abilities to use gum itself. I know that devil fruits have different names to what they actually do, but with Luffy it's too direct to not notice. Also, even if the fruit is actually rubber based, why does Haki unlock a new form for Luffy that completely alters his looks? And why is he the only one in the series besides Chopper to be able to unlock new forms with his devil fruit? It's confusing since how does expanding your body basically completely change your physical structure into weird constructs like a Snake Man, as well as if Luffy runs out of Haki, then he goes back into base form for no reason, even though in a logical sense, Haki shouldn't affect your devil fruit to the point where it shuts down your devil fruit with overuse. We've seen Logia and Paramecia users never burn out overusing their powers, with only Luffy being the only one to actually have this devil fruit shut down on him. Yeah, you can chalk it up to Luffy physically gets tired, though it still doesn't make sense Haki shuts down for 10 minutes after Gear 4th. With small details like these, you start to question how Luffy is able to do this, and Gear 5 answered all these questions that we never thought before its reveal. Imagination is the reason why Luffy is able to maximize his power to the max. Gear 2 expands his heart, Gear 3 expands his bones, Gear 4 expands his muscles, and Gear 5 expands his mind. There's a reason why Luffy states that Gear 5 is his peak. He no longer has to push his body further when his mind has been fully awakened to prevent that. The body and mind has become one with Luffy with the revival of Joy Boy, spurring a moment in time to reflect this return. He has never felt free until this point of the story. It's the pinnacle of character writing, showing this principle of clarity, reflecting what a person feels in a near-death experience. The awakening embodies Luffy's principles of combat, dreams, and lessons that he has grasped in his pirate journey. Like Gojo when he got his awakening, Luffy experienced the high of being able to do the impossible. He wastes no time to drag Kaido from the building to start their climax of a fight. Gear 5 is not an accumulation of One Piece, it's an accumulation of Luffy's ambitions that his devil fruit passed down to him. Wills are an important factor of this series. The will of D being the most important, and I think the will of D is Luffy himself, who will set out to do whatever that is meant for the family. The people who bear the name D will have a great impact on the world, yet I think only one person will accomplish that. Luffy is the prime candidate for this now with Gear 5 and not just being the MC. The awakening of Joy Boy is the awakening of a new age that will come to take down the system of corruption. The government has been so worried for this that they've tried to take out Luffy multiple times, but their lack of competence of not taking Luffy seriously when it mattered is what caused this new age of liberation into fruition. The irony becomes that they succeeded in taking out Luffy and completing what they had to prevent the awakening of Nika, until they realized they caused Luffy to awaken his fruit because of the action CP0 did. Now the government is in shambles, with the rise of the new emperors having Luffy being at the forefront of them all, setting this new age of liberation that has everyone now racing for the One Piece. Shanks knew this, stating to Beckman that they will set out for the One Piece now, as the new 3 emperors of the sea have replaced the old age of piracy that Big Mom and Kaido couldn't let go of. I hope after this point, Gear 5 doesn't only become a form that Luffy needs to progress the story at every problem. One thing I haven't pointed out is that will Luffy expand his soul? If Oda does reveal another form, then I will see the soul being the factor to this new transformation, as each form, like I said, expands something affecting his body. His soul is one thing he hasn't touched, surprisingly, since Haki would be a main factor for this, considering Haki is the life force that everyone has. Maybe Gear 5 is that, but Gear 5 for sure relates to the mind. It will be cool to see if he does go this route. I won't expect another form because I'm happy with Gear 5 being Luffy's peak. I won't expect a Gear 6 or a Gear 1st theory I've made up in my mind. I have many criticisms of Wano, mostly because of the anime. I won't cover them here because again, that's for another day. Yet Wano is probably the best arc after post time skip, honestly. It doesn't reach the storytelling of Alabasta for me. It never will. It does introduce back some of the story structures that pre-time skip did so well, regardless, because we get a lot of Wano history that post-time skip arcs seem to not cover for their own arcs. Looking at you, Fishman Island, looking at you. It's almost a Mona Lisa for Oda's writing, but misses the mark in many ways. Ignoring the criticisms, it's a top 5 arc for me because it's a good ending for the new world and begins the most important race that everyone is competing for. It's why I fell in love with One Piece to begin with. It's a reminder of what made pre-time skip so good. Wano is a masterpiece in terms of post-time skip and gave us the best moments from the series that I feel like only pre-time skip achieved in my journey of catching up with One Piece.
Let me ride it! Hurry up and let me ride it!
Some final notes to wrap up this video. I've said it once and I'll say it again. I love One Piece. I can understand why the fanbase have been pushy recently on starting the series. With the last saga bombshelling important story lore, the ending of One Piece won't be left unspoiled. I recommend you actually watch the show or read the manga to catch up now if you have watched this video before actually seeing the series. How I would do is start the anime in Baratie, catch up all the way to time skip, then drop the anime and pick up the manga again. This is probably the best way to enjoy the series, or just straight up read the manga in its entirety. If you want to start the anime, then go ahead. It'll just take you some time. I didn't cover though because it's an interlude arc for me. I know we get moments with the Minks not writing out who Kaido's crew was looking for, yet that's all to it. It's those arcs where the crew can just relax a bit to recoup their energy and plan out the next course of action. Fishman and Punk Hazard do not get that excuse, and I will be going over them in the bad of One Piece video I have planned. The video will be more of a criticism though, so don't get mad seeing the title. The next video won't be that though, sadly. I'm going to talk about a certain game I love, but then right after come back to it, if my urge to talk about JJK first doesn't kick in. I will cover the other big 3 and Dragon Ball down the line, but that's just me getting ahead of myself. myself, there's a lot of media I want to put my opinions in the bag of conversation. I feel like for this video, I cover certain sections people in the community wouldn't talk about. For the most part, I try to do a mix of moments where people can agree are amazing with moments I find amazing. I know a lot of people, or the 5 people who will watch this, would disagree with Wholecake and perhaps MarineFord, but just remember it's my take of the series on why I fell in love with it. I still want to hear your point of view on it, since we all love One Piece for different reasons. I didn't cover Egghead since there hasn't been a payoff yet, so once the series finishes by the end of this decade, I'll probably remake this video if this video does well. Please share this video with friends. I do not want to work as a waiter anymore. It's getting to me. These bills looking like Krusty Krab prices, bro. I can't take it anymore. I need something to fund my One Piece and Yu-Gi-Oh! TCG addiction. I still haven't pulled a manga for a chopper and it's killing me.